Chapter 3698. Respect. Why didn't we see it? You don't have such an attitude towards us. Gold Sun Sword and Silver Moon Sword were immediately indignant. Will you die if you don't speak? Qin Feiyang glared at them angrily. Are you a professional teardown? You won't let others speak the truth? The two great swords snorted coldly. They were quite dissatisfied with Qin Feiyang's biased attitude. Qin Feiyang felt powerless and asked, "How about I remove the blood oath now and you guys leave?" If he couldn't afford to offend him, why couldn't he hide? If you tell us to leave, we'll leave? We'll talk about it later. We are Dominator Divine Weapons, yet you despise us so much. Don't we have any face? The two great immortal swords were really like scoundrels, causing Qin Feiyang to feel despair. How could it be these two things? Shouldn't a dignified Dominator Divine Weapon be cold and aloof? Sigh. This should be considered asking for trouble. However, if he really wanted to remove the blood oath, he wouldn't be able to bear it. After all, no matter how much of a bastard he was still a Dominator Divine Weapon. Qin Feiyang once again looked at the Ice Phoenix sword, and said with sincerity, "Believe me, you will not regret your choice today." The Ice Phoenix sword remained silent. Qin Feiyang sighed. "If you really don't want to, then I can only be ruthless and destroy you. After all, you are my future enemy." "Are you threatening this sovereign?" The Ice Phoenix sword finally spoke. "Respect is mutual." Qin Feiyang did not answer directly, but the meaning was already quite obvious. If you abandon the dark and join the light, I will respect you. But if you are stubborn, then I can only be ruthless. The Ice Phoenix sword was a Dominator Divine Weapon, so it naturally understood what Qin Feiyang meant. Moreover, after fighting so many times, it was also well aware of Qin Feiyang's character and methods. If it dared to say no now, Qin Feiyang would definitely attack immediately without any hesitation. Seeing that the Ice Phoenix sword did not speak for a long time, Qin Feiyang sighed softly and said, "Looks like my sincerity is not enough to move you. How about this? Let's both swear a blood oath. Just like the Golden Dragon Spear, White Dragon Sword, and Black Dragon Mirror, no matter what happens in the future, we will use our lives to protect each other's rights and dignity. In other words, we are not working for each other. We are partners who rely on each other, friends who help each other." When Qin Feiyang said this, a bitter smile crept up on his face, and he said, "I really don't know what's going on today. I can obviously force you to swear a blood oath, but I still have to lower my voice and compromise. Do I have masochistic tendencies? Using our lives to protect each other's rights and dignity." Ice Phoenix sword murmured. His heart seemed to have been touched, and he began to waver. "I really don't understand. What else is there to consider? To put it bluntly, you are working like a horse and phone people, but you are here as a boss. Do you still need us to tell you which one is more comfortable?" Li Feng was speechless. This was the first time he had met such a stubborn Dominator Divine Weapon. Ice Phoenix sword sighed and finally made a decision, saying, "All right, this sovereign agrees. Let's swear a blood oath to protect each other." Qin Feiyang was overjoyed when he heard this. At least he didn't waste so much breath. Compared to a fierce battle, this peaceful solution was naturally the most perfect. At this moment, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in front of Ice Phoenix sword. One man and one sword stood facing each other, making a promise to protect each other. "Welcome." The ancient castle and the death god's sword chuckled. "Feng Ho will definitely not let this sovereign off. At that time, I will have to count on the two of you to help me." Ice Phoenix sword smiled bitterly. "Don't worry. We're already on the same side. We're duty-bound to help you." The ancient castle smiled. "Thank you." Ice Phoenix sword smiled gratefully. Gold Sun Divine Sword asked curiously, "Qin Feiyang, how much hatred do you have with the phone people and the dragons to poach them like this?" "You're asking me? I don't know either. Because they have always been targeting me." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Do they have nothing better to do? Why would they target you for no reason?" Gold Sun Divine Sword was speechless. Qin Feiyang looked at Gold Sun Divine Sword, then looked at Ice Phoenix Sword and said, "You should know the reason why the dragons, the phone people, And the Kirin clan are targeting me, right? Ice Phoenix Sword pondered for a moment, then sighed. Because of your ancestor, the human emperor. As expected, Qin Feiyang muttered, frowning. How did the human emperor die back then? Ice Phoenix Sword asked suspiciously. Don't the little rabbit and the feather emperor know? Why don't you ask them? I did, but they didn't say. Last time the Dragon King, Feng Ho, the Kirin Master, the little rabbit, and the feather emperor were all there. But what did they say? Let me make a promise to never betray the Sky Cloud Realm before telling me. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead, feeling a headache. That's for sure. If it's me, if you don't make a promise first, I won't tell you either. Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. Then why don't you tell me? Consider it as me begging you. Qin Feiyang looked at Ice Phoenix Sword with longing. Ice Phoenix Sword pondered for a moment and said, Okay, I'll tell you, but you have to be mentally prepared. I've been prepared for a long time. Qin Feiyang was pleasantly surprised. Ice Phoenix Sword said, The human emperor's wife, the purple gold divine dragon, she actually came from the divine kingdom. What? Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The purple gold divine dragon actually came from the divine kingdom? Li Feng also had a face of shock. He really didn't expect that the purple gold divine dragon had such a background. You didn't hear wrong. She is from the divine kingdom. Moreover, her status in the divine kingdom is not low. The ruler of the divine kingdom is the purple gold divine dragon, and she was the princess of the purple gold divine dragon at that time. Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. Princess, Qin Feiyang murmured. This truth was too shocking, and he couldn't digest it for a while. Now you know why the Dragon King and the others want to kill you. The Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan is the ruler of the Divine Kingdom. As the descendant of the human emperor and the princess of the Divine Kingdom, you are naturally related to the Divine Kingdom. Moreover, you are the most direct relatives. In other words, you are equivalent to half a person of the Divine Kingdom. And your talent and strength, the Dragon King and the others have seen it. If your position is clear and you always stand on the side of the Sky Cloud Realm, it will naturally be a great help to the Sky Cloud Realm. But if you choose the Divine Kingdom, then you will be a powerful enemy that threatens the Sky Cloud Realm. Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. So they want to get rid of me? Qin Feiyang whispered. Yes. The Feather Emperor and the Little Rabbit have a good relationship with the Human Emperor, especially the Feather Emperor. As the younger brother of the Human Emperor, you are also his direct descendant. So for an unknown like you, they are willing to take the risk. But the Dragon King and the others are different. They don't dare to take the risk, and they don't dare to believe in you. Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. Human Emperor. The princess of the Divine Kingdom. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was really heaven's will. As for the reason why the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Qilin Lord killed the human emperor back then, it was because of this. The Divine Kingdom came to invade the Sky Cloud Realm, and the human emperor, as the leader of the human race in the Sky Cloud Realm, actually walked together with the princess of the Divine Kingdom. Naturally, he was unhappy. Not to mention the Dragon King and the others, at that time, even the Little Rabbit and the Feather Emperor strongly opposed it. So later, after everyone joined forces to drive away the Divine Kingdom, while the Human Emperor and the Feather Emperor were seriously injured, the Dragon King and the others decisively took action and plotted against the Human Emperor. Unfortunately, the Human Emperor fell. The Princess of the Divine Kingdom was also sealed in the core area of the Land of the Buried Gods. As for the Feather Emperor, at that time, we all thought that he had also fallen, but we didn't expect that he actually escaped and now returned with a strong force. This is the secret of that year. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed. Before knowing the truth, he was very eager. Now that he finally knew, he regretted it a little, because after knowing, his heart became heavier. Ice Phoenix Sword pondered for a while and said, Now that you know the truth, and there are no outsiders here, why don't you tell me? What is your position in your heart? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He was very confused. Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. It seems that the worries of the Dragon King and the others are not unreasonable, but I can understand your hesitation. After all, On one side was the Sky Cloud realm that the human emperor desperately protected, and on the other side was the homeland of the human emperor's wife, the princess of the divine kingdom. As their descendant, Qin Feiyang was sandwiched in the middle. Thank you. Qin Feiyang smiled gratefully, looked at the sky, and sighed. Actually, my position is not important. What is important is the position of my ancestor. Ancestor? Ice Phoenix Sword was stunned. Yes. There is one person that I have never disclosed to the public. This person is my ancestor Qin Batian, and his other identity is the son of the human emperor and the princess of the divine kingdom. Qin Feiyang said. What? The son of the human emperor and the princess of the divine kingdom is actually alive. Ice Phoenix Sword was shocked. The identity of my ancestor has been personally confirmed by the Feather Emperor, so it can't be fake. As their son, my ancestor's relationship with the divine kingdom is undoubtedly deeper. Unlike me, we are separated by several generations. Even if we are related by blood, I don't feel anything for the divine kingdom. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That's true. As the son of the human emperor and the princess of the divine kingdom, the father of the princess of the divine kingdom, the king of the divine kingdom, is your ancestor's grandfather. Grandfather, grandson. This relationship is the closest family. In the face of such kinship, I believe that anyone in the world would find it difficult to make a choice. Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, worried. This is not right. Since the princess of the divine kingdom has chosen to be with the human emperor, it means that they are truly in love. It is even possible that the princess of the divine kingdom is already on the side of the Sky Cloud realm. No matter how much the Dragon King and the others hate them, they shouldn't have plotted against them. Li Feng frowned. You don't understand the tragedy of that battle at all. Because of the divine kingdom, the people of the Sky Cloud realm were plunged into misery and suffering. Heaven and earth fell apart. Not only the dragons, the Feng people, the Kirin clan, but even the human clan, the Sea Beast clan, and the Beast clan hated the divine kingdom to the core. And I just mentioned that even the Feather Emperor and the Little Rabbit strongly opposed them being together. Do you want to know how much damage the divine kingdom brought to the Sky Cloud realm back then? Therefore, it is understandable that the Dragon King and the others attacked in anger. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Chapter 3699. Li Feng fell silent. Even the Little Rabbit and the Feather Emperor opposed it. What the divine kingdom did back then was indeed too inhumane. Of course, the dragons, the Feng people, and the Kirin clan are not without selfishness. Ice Phoenix Sword said again. Selfishness? Qin Feiyang and Li Feng were stunned. They looked up at Ice Phoenix Sword and asked, what selfishness? Where there are people, there will naturally be conflicts of interest. The human emperor and the Dragon King have always been at odds. They can be considered old rivals, and the human race was very powerful back then. Just the human race alone had the ability to fight against the three major races. Therefore, for the three major races, the love between the human emperor and the princess of the divine kingdom is equivalent to a reason to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Just the human race alone can fight against the three major races? Qin Feiyang and Li Feng were shocked. It was really beyond their imagination. Back then, the human race had three super powerhouses. The human emperor, the Feather Emperor, and the Blood Ancestor were all extremely powerful. Looking at the three major races, only the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Kirin Lord could fight against them. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Three super powerhouses, Qin Feiyang murmured. He was extremely shocked. Wait. The Blood Ancestor? This? Qin Feiyang and Li Feng looked at each other. The Blood Ancestor mentioned by Ice Phoenix Sword couldn't be the Blood Ancestor they knew, right? When he came back to his senses, Li Feng hurriedly asked, who is the Blood Ancestor? He was extremely nervous. Qin Feiyang was the same. Although the Blood Ancestor wasn't the human emperor's brother like the Feather Emperor, their relationship was very good. At that time, the human emperor, the Feather Emperor, and the Blood Ancestor were known as the three leaders of the human race. They were the spiritual pillars of the entire human race. Later, when the Dragon King and the others ambushed the human emperor, the Blood Ancestor unfortunately fell. Speaking of this, Ice Phoenix Sword shrouded Li Feng with divine sense and said in confusion, "But I don't know why I can sense the Blood Ancestor's aura on you." Li Feng's heart trembled. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but turn to look at Li Feng. Since even the Ice Phoenix Sword could sense the aura of the Blood Ancestor from Li Feng's body, then the Blood Ancestor they were familiar with was definitely one of the three great leaders back then, the Blood Ancestor. He hadn't expected the Blood Ancestor to have such a powerful background. However, why was the Blood Ancestor in the ancient realm? And why did Long Tianyu also have the aura of the Blood Ancestor? Li Feng asked. Qin Dage, since the Blood Ancestor is the brother of the human sovereign, he shouldn't harm me, right? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. It seemed that he had worried too much before. However, in order to confirm, Qin Feiyang looked at the Ice Phoenix Sword and asked, "What methods does the Blood Ancestor have?" Although the Blood Ancestor was one of the three great leaders of the human race, he wasn't a kind person when he was young, killing people like scything flax. In his eyes, there was never any sympathy or pity. His most terrifying method was to devour the flesh and blood of living creatures to strengthen his own strength. Furthermore, it is said that when he entered the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure, he obtained a terrifying secret technique that allowed him to devour the souls of the undead and absorb the law energy contained within them for his own use. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. "That's right," Qin Feiyang muttered. "What's right?" The Ice Phoenix Sword was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said. "The Blood Ancestor didn't fall either, he came back." "What?" The Ice Phoenix Sword was shocked. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Li Feng can be considered the disciple of the Blood Ancestor. The secret technique you are talking about, Li Feng has mastered it." The Ice Phoenix Sword's divine sense firmly locked onto Li Feng, and there was a wave of shock. The Feather Emperor had returned, and so had the Blood Ancestor. None of them had died? Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng and shook his head with a smile. "Now I finally understand why the Blood Ancestor took you to hide. He was afraid of being discovered by the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Qilin Master. I'm afraid this is the truth he wanted to tell you." Li Feng nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng suspiciously and frowned. "But I'm a little puzzled as to why the Blood Ancestor would like you." "Ahem." Li Feng coughed and laughed. "Needless to say, it must be because I'm talented." Qin Feiyang was speechless. "Is it really good to be so shameless at such a young age?" The Ice Phoenix Sword said. "In fact, there was a race that made great contributions during the war with the Divine Kingdom, but this race was also the most pitiful. They were wiped out in the war back then." "What race?" Qin Feiyang and Li Feng were shocked. "They were wiped out." "The Blood Demon race." The Ice Phoenix Sword said. "What? The Blood Demon race?" Not to mention Qin Feiyang and Li Feng, even the castle was shocked. "You know about the Blood Demon race?" The Ice Phoenix Sword looked at the reaction of Qin Feiyang and the castle, and asked suspiciously. "Yes. The Blood Demon race was not wiped out. They are now living in the lower realm. I still have a lot of connections with the Blood Demon race." Qin Feiyang said. "Not wiped out." The Ice Phoenix Sword was stunned. This was really unexpected. After pondering for a while, the Ice Phoenix Sword asked, "Then is the Blood Demon race in the Hell King's Hell now?" "You know about the Hell King's Hell?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes. Not only do I know, but Dragon King and the others also know. When the Divine Kingdom descended, not only the Sky Cloud Realm, but even the Hell King's Hell was not spared." The Ice Phoenix Sword sighed. "So the Blood Demon race was also in the Sky Cloud Realm back then?" Qin Feiyang asked. He had a hunch that the mystery of senior brother Feng Zi's background was about to be solved. "Yes. The Blood Demon race was also in existence like the dragons, the Feng people, and the Kirin race back then. And the leader of the Blood Demon race was known as the Blood Demon King. His strength was not inferior to the human emperor and the others. I remember that back then, when the master of the divine nation learned that there were other continents beneath the Sky Cloud realm, He ordered an expert of the divine nation to lead a group of people and kill their way to the lower realms. At that time, it was the Blood Demon King who stepped forward and led the entire Blood Demon race to intercept them. But since then, not only the Blood Demon race, but even the Blood Demon King never returned to the Sky Cloud realm. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. They actually used the power of an entire race to intercept the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom? Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. How powerful was the Divine Kingdom? Li Feng asked. What about the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom? Only one of them came back. This person is the leader of the Divine Kingdom. It is said that he is one of the strongest under the command of the Lord of the Divine Kingdom. However, he was also seriously injured by the Blood Demon King and didn't participate in the battle afterward. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. So the Blood Demon King is still slightly inferior? Li Feng frowned. Yes. The Ice Phoenix Sword replied. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked. Then after the battle, why didn't you go to the Blood Demon race in the hell? Although the passage to the lower realm has rules and restrictions, it shouldn't affect powerhouses like you and the Dragon King. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. Because after the battle, the passage to the lower realm was blocked by the little rabbit. I am now wondering if the little rabbit is deliberately protecting the Blood Demon race. If a powerhouse like the Dragon King and a sovereign divine weapon like you really want to go to the lower realm, the little rabbit alone can't stop them. Qin Feiyang frowned. Of course it can stop them. The little rabbit's strength is similar to ours, but its identity in the Sky Cloud realm is not something we can offend. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. What identity? Qin Feiyang was surprised. You should ask it yourself in the future, because it's not convenient for me to say much about its situation. The Ice Phoenix Sword seemed to be a little afraid. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. It seemed that he didn't find any mystery about the madman's background. No. There was a clue. Suddenly. Qin Feiyang asked the Ice Phoenix Sword. Did the Blood Demon King have a sovereign divine weapon back then? Yes. It's called the Blood Demon Tower. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. Sure enough. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Back then, the guardian of the Miracle Fire Python guessed that the Blood Demon Tower might be a sovereign divine weapon, but he didn't expect it to be true. And the Blood Demon Tower was the Blood Demon King's sovereign divine weapon. Then, when the Blood Demon Tower chose to follow the madman, did that mean that the madman was really the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King? Because back then, they had guessed that the madman might be the reincarnation of the Blood Demon clan's ancestor. And the ancestor of the Blood Demon clan was the Blood Demon King. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked at the Ice Phoenix Sword and asked. There is one more question. Why does the Yin Demon power exist in the Yin Demon land? The madman was able to absorb the Yin Demon power, and felt a familiar calling in the Yin Demon land. So it must be related to the madman. The Yin Demon land was originally the land of the Blood Demon clan. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. The land of the Blood Demon clan? Qin Feiyang was shocked. That's right. And the Yin Demon power is formed from the divine power of the Blood Demon King. To tell you the truth, when we saw the madman, we already thought that he might be related to the Blood Demon King. Because not only can he absorb the Yin Demon power, but he can also transform into the Blood Demon clan. However, what is the relationship between him and the Blood Demon King? We need you to help us answer this. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. I don't know either. Qin Feiyang shook his head, pondered for a while, and said, but we all suspect that senior brother should be the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. Reincarnation? The Ice Phoenix Sword murmured with a wry smile. I really didn't expect that the former powerhouses are all returning one after another, and now only the human emperor is left. Could it be that the human emperor has also reincarnated and returned? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, this is just our guess, it hasn't been confirmed yet. Even if he isn't the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King, he must be related to the Blood Demon King. And this sovereign has a premonition that with the madman's talent and fortune, he will definitely become the next Blood Demon King in the future. Feather Emperor, Blood Ancestor, Blood Demon King. It seems that with the arrival of the Divine Kingdom, Our sky cloud realm might not have no chance of winning. But in the end it still depends on how you and Qin Batian choose. The Ice Phoenix sword said. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and shook his head. Some things, when you haven't reached that step, it's really difficult to choose. Chapter 3700. The Ice Phoenix sword was silent for a while before sighing. Now that we have become companions, I naturally hope that you can stand on the side of the sky cloud realm. Why? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Even though I'm a sovereign armament, I had to use all of my power in the battle against the theocracy. I almost died. Revenge is a must. The divine kingdom has descended again. I naturally can't let them have an easy time. The Ice Phoenix sword coldly snorted. Her words carried a piercing, killing intent. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at the Ice Phoenix sword and didn't directly give a definite answer. Instead, he asked suspiciously, how can the seal of the land of buried gods be lifted? And why didn't the Dragon King and the others directly kill the Divine Kingdom's princess back then? They didn't kill her because of the little rabbit. Although the little rabbit was against the human emperor and the Divine Kingdom's princess at first, when she saw the human emperor fall, she couldn't help but feel compassion in her heart. That's why she came forward to stop the Dragon King and the others. As for lifting the seal, not to mention the current you, even the Feather Emperor and the little rabbit can't do it. That's because the seal in the core region was jointly set up by the Dragon King, the Phoenix Queen, the Qilin Master, and all the sovereign divine weapons of the three great races, including myself, as well as the surviving old antiques of the three great races. The Ice Phoenix sword said. No way. Qin Feiyang and Li Feng looked at each other. Putting aside the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Qilin Lord, their strength was obvious to all. As for the sovereign weapons of the three races, as far as they knew, there were at least 30 of them in total. And counting the reclusive antiques of the three races who had mastered the ultimate mysteries, with such a lineup, there was no hope of lifting the seal that was jointly laid down. No wonder even Yun Xiang, the masked Shura, and the various divine beasts of the land of buried gods could only watch helplessly. Qin Feiyang asked, then what's the origin of the divine beasts in the land of buried gods? The Ice Phoenix sword said. They were all companions of the human sovereign, just like the vicious beasts beside you. In short, all the divine beasts by the human sovereign's side that survived that battle are now in the land of buried gods. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded. No wonder the black-clothed middle-aged man kept saying that he wouldn't hurt him. Other details. When the Divine Kingdom descends in the future, you will slowly understand. As for the details of what happened to the Blood Ancestor and the Blood Demon King, I'm afraid we'll have to wait until their true bodies appear. So from now on, don't think too much. Work hard to improve your strength. Phone people, dragons, this time, the Qilin clan is determined to keep you in the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure. Therefore, in the future, you will have to face many bitter battles. Ice Phoenix sword said. I'm ready to fight. Qin Feiyang sneered. No matter what, the human sovereign fell because of the Dragon King and the other two. And there was also selfishness mixed in. There was a good saying, a debt of blood must be paid in blood. Li Feng laughed and said, as long as they aren't together now, it should be us who hunt them. Ice Phoenix sword, White Dragon sword, Golden Dragon spear, Black Dragon mirror, Golden Sun godly sword, Silver Moon godly sword, Ancient castle, and Grim Reaper sword. A total of 8 sovereign divine weapons. It was equivalent to the White-Eyed Wolf, Frenzy, Yun Xiang, and the others combined. That was a total of 12 sovereign divine weapons. With such a lineup, unless the people of the 3 major clans were all gathered together, they would kill anyone they saw. Low profile, low profile. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. He turned his head to look at the 2 divine swords and asked, then shall we go and visit your 2 old friends? He still wanted to fight for the Golden Bell and the ancient pagoda. Visit. You still have to be so reserved. Just say it. We are going to suppress them. If you don't agree, then fight. The 2 divine swords clamored. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched violently. The more he looked at them, the more they looked like 2 scammers. But before the 2 divine swords finished their words, Two angry roars suddenly sounded. Bastards, is this how you treat your friends? You have really blinded us. Ah. The two divine swords were shocked. Qin Feiyang and Li Feng hurriedly looked up, and saw the golden bell, and the ancient pagoda fly out from the mountains not far away. They were only the size of a palm and didn't have any aura on them. Didn't you leave? Golden Sun Godly Sword asked in shock. If we left, would we still have the chance to see your true faces? The ancient pagoda snorted. Ha! Don't misunderstand. You guys know my personality. I like to talk nonsense. Golden Sun Godly Sword laughed dryly and quickly explained. Scram. Immediately after, it said, Qin Feiyang, helping you before is already considered a favor. Thus, don't try to reach for a yard after being given an inch. Seniors. Qin Feiyang was about to speak. Don't say anything, we don't plan to leave this place. As for you two bastards, we will break off our friendship in the future, and never come into contact with each other again. After the ancient pagoda and the golden bell finished speaking, they turned around and flew away without looking back. How heartless. Golden Sun Godly Sword sighed. Qin Feiyang and Li Feng looked at each other, and couldn't help but reveal a wry smile. They wanted to fight for it, but in the end they didn't even have the chance to speak. Silver Moon Godly Sword said. Qin Feiyang, you saw it too. Don't say that we didn't help you. It's fine. It's fine. Besides, they are not our enemies. We have no reason to force them to follow us. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Even if they couldn't become companions, they definitely couldn't become enemies. Moreover, karma was a wonderful thing. For example, the Green Cauldron. Back then, the Feather Emperor had saved it, and now the Green Cauldron was helping him. If the Sky Bell Divine Treasure were to appear again in the future, if the descendants of the Qin bloodline, or the descendants of his friends were to enter the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, perhaps they would receive the care of the Crimson Gold Bell, and the ancient pagoda like him. In short, today they had formed a good karma. No matter if they met again in the future, they would remember each other in their hearts. Let's find a place to recuperate first. These two bastards' bodies are severely injured. If they encounter a strong enemy, they will drag us down. Qin Feiyang looked at the castle, the Sword of Death, and the Ice Phoenix Sword. You don't need to ask us about this. Just decide for yourself. The Ice Phoenix Sword said. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and scanned the surroundings. Finally, he looked at a giant mountain in the distance and smiled. Let's go. Whoosh. The two of them and the 5 sovereign divine weapons immediately flew above the giant mountain. If only there was a time array, Qin Feiyang whispered. It was a pity that the white-eyed wolf was not here, because among the few of them, only the white-eyed wolf had mastered the law of time. Li Feng frowned and said, without the time array, how long will it take for the two of them to repair their bodies? Isn't it all your fault? Don't you know how to talk things over? Why did you have to attack us? The two divine swords were dissatisfied. Or is it our fault? You guys are really shameless. Who was it that chased after us with all their might? Li Feng said angrily. Cough cough. The two divine swords were embarrassed when they heard this. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but roll his eyes. After pondering for a moment, he looked at the two divine swords and asked, is the law of life helpful to your sovereign divine weapons in repairing their bodies? Of course. The two divine swords replied. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, then between the origin energy and the law of life, which one has the best effect on repairing your bodies? Nonsense. Of course it's the origin energy. It's a pity that after living for so many years, I haven't even seen what the origin energy is like. Golden Sun Divine Sword sighed regretfully. Qin Feiyang said, follow me back to the Sky Cloud realm, and you will have the chance to see it. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? Golden Sun Divine Sword despised. Didn't I say that I control an independent world? Now many divine weapons around me are cultivating in the land of origin. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Do you believe me when I say that I'm the god of creation? The two divine swords laughed sarcastically. Forget it if you don't believe me. Qin Feiyang was too lazy to talk nonsense with them. With a wave of his hand, The law of life emerged and drowned the two divine weapons. Qin Dage. You. Li Feng suddenly stared at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Ice Phoenix Sword was also extremely surprised. This little guy actually mastered the law of life. Why had he never heard of it before? What's wrong? Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng suspiciously. Is this the law of life? Li Feng asked. Nonsense. If this isn't the law of life, then what is it? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. But, Li Feng had a look of disbelief. There's nothing to be surprised about. I'll comprehend the law of life and death first. If you can't stay idle, you can go hunt skeletons nearby. Qin Feiyang finished speaking and sat cross-legged on the ground. A death force and a life force spread out from his body. The two forces intertwined with each other without any sign of rejection, as if they were one. Law of death. Li Feng looked at this scene, and only noticed that there was one more law of death. But Ice Phoenix Sword, Golden Sun Divine Sword, and Silver Moon Divine Sword noticed the fusion of the two laws, and their hearts suddenly set off stormy waves. What's wrong with you guys? Sensing the strong emotional fluctuations of the three sovereign divine weapons, Li Feng looked at them suspiciously. Comprehending two strongest laws for Qin Dage, this didn't seem to be a big deal. You don't understand. Ice Phoenix Sword said, and its divine sense enveloped Qin Feiyang. After observing for a moment it said, Li Feng, right? Let's go. I'll accompany you to hunt skeletons, and see if you can really devour the souls of the dead like blood ancestor. Thank you. Li Feng was overjoyed. With the help of a sovereign divine weapon, wouldn't it be a one-sided massacre? At that moment, one man and one sword flew into the distance. I really didn't expect that he could actually fuse the power of life and death. The power of life and death. What a terrifying young man. Ice Phoenix Sword muttered. Huh, what power of life and death? Li Feng was surprised. Nothing. Ice Phoenix Sword replied lightly. But the shock in its heart couldn't be calmed down. Even a sovereign divine weapon like it had never seen the real power of life and death, because no one had ever succeeded in fusing it. Even in the eyes of a sovereign divine weapon, this was just an ethereal legend. But it didn't expect that it would appear in front of it now. Chapter 3701. At the peak of the mountain, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and meditated. The ancient castle returned to Qin Feiyang's body. The sword of the Grim Reaper stood guard at the side. The Gold Sun God Sword and the Silver Moon God Sword used the law of life to repair their damaged bodies while using their divine sense to investigate Qin Feiyang. It was as if they wanted to see through Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and looked at the two swords angrily. How am I supposed to comprehend the law of life and death like this? His spiritual sense was constantly scanning Yunche's body, and he didn't even try to hide it. There's nothing I can do. Who told you to be too handsome? The Gold Sun God Sword chuckled. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. But kid, the Gold Sun God Sword changed the topic and asked, do you know how powerful the law of life and death is? Of course I do. The ancient castle and the sword of the Grim Reaper had long told him about how powerful the law of life and death was. You know? The Gold Sun God Sword was slightly stunned and said with a sneaky smile, it seems that I don't need to explain it to you anymore. Work hard. When you comprehend the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, you will be truly invincible. Even the legendary Supreme Ruler Divine Weapon won't be your match. Qin Feiyang was stunned and frowned. Supreme Ruler Divine Weapon? What does that mean? You don't know? The Gold Sun God Sword was stunned. No. A Ruler Divine Weapon is a Ruler Divine Weapon. Why is there a Supreme Ruler Divine Weapon? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. I really don't know. The Gold Sun God Sword was surprised. The sword of the Grim Reaper suddenly spoke and scolded. Repair your body properly. Why are you talking so much nonsense? The Gold Sun God Sword and the Silver Moon God Sword were stunned. So, the sword of the Grim Reaper and the ancient castle were deliberately hiding it from Qin Feiyang? What do you mean? Qin Feiyang looked at the three ruler divine weapons suspiciously. He wasn't stupid. From the tone of the sword of the Grim Reaper, he knew that it was hiding something from him. Sigh. The sword of the Grim Reaper sighed and said, Since we've already said this much, there's no need to hide it from you anymore. In fact, sovereign weapons are also divided into different levels. What? There are different levels of sovereign weapons. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This was truly unheard of. That's right. The levels of Dominator Divine weapons are also divided into low, middle, high, peak, legendary, and supreme levels. The Thanatos sword explained. Upon hearing this, Qin Feiyang said in astonishment, "Isn't that the same as a heaven-defying divine artifact?" Yes. However, the evolution of a Dominator weapon is just as difficult as the comprehension of ultimate profound. Furthermore, every time you advance to a new realm, you will be baptized by the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation of a sovereign weapon. Not to mention you. Even we don't have any confidence in surviving it. The Death God's sword sighed. The Dominator weapon can still evolve. Qin Feiyang couldn't believe it. Although he had been wandering in the sky cloud realm for so many years, this was the first time he had heard of such a thing. The fact that a Dominator weapon can evolve is also considered a secret. Those who know about it are only super powerhouses like the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Feather Emperor. The most important thing is, the necessary condition for a Dominator weapon to evolve is the origin energy. In other words, for us Dominator weapons, only by absorbing the origin energy can we have the possibility of evolving. Otherwise, we will forever be stuck here. The Death God's sword said. No wonder no one told me before. It turns out to be a secret. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Only by absorbing the origin energy can there be the possibility of evolving? This condition was really quite harsh. To be honest, it was even harder than comprehending the ultimate profound. Because although the ultimate profound was very difficult to comprehend, one could try it at any time and anywhere. However, the origin energy was something that only existed in the land of origin. And if one wanted to have the land of origin, one must first have an independent world. An independent world. Since the beginning of the Great Qin dynasty, other than himself, he had never seen anyone else who had a world. So this hard condition was tantamount to restricting the growth of the Dominator weapon. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the Gold Sun Divine Sword and Silver Moon Divine Sword, frowning. You guys are shamelessly following me. Is it because I have an independent world? This kid has a problem with his brain. I think so too. The two divine swords muttered. Who has a problem with their brain? Qin Feiyang glared at them angrily. Nonsense. Of course it's you. Always imagining that you have an independent world. If this isn't a problem with your brain, then what is? Young man, don't lie all day, be more realistic. The two divine swords despised him. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. To tell the truth, no one believed him? Fine. It was his imagination. There was something wrong with his brain. It was best not to beg him in the future. Qin Feiyang looked at the Death God's sword and asked. So now, the Dominator weapons of our Sky Cloud realm are actually all low-level Dominator weapons? Yes. The Death God's sword replied. This, Qin Feiyang scratched his head. For a moment he couldn't accept it. Every Dominator weapon of the Sky Cloud realm was an invincible existence, but now he was suddenly told that they were all low-level Dominator weapons. This contrast was really hard for him to adapt to. Although they are low-level Dominator weapons, you must not underestimate them because of this. Because the level of a Dominator weapon is equivalent to the ultimate meaning of the strongest law. The Death God's sword explained. Equivalent to the ultimate meaning? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. The power of a low-level Dominator weapon corresponds to the ultimate meaning of a strongest law. The power of a mid-level Dominator weapon corresponds to the ultimate meaning of two strongest laws. The power of a high-level Dominator weapon corresponds to the ultimate meaning of three strongest laws. And so on. You can understand it this way. If you have a high-level Dominator weapon, then the opponent must have the ultimate meaning of three strongest laws to be able to fight with you. The Death God's sword said. So that's how it is. In other words, if it's a supreme-level Dominator weapon, then one must have the ultimate meaning of six strongest laws to be able to match it. Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. As for the ultimate meaning of ordinary laws, although it can be called invincible, it is still a distance away from the ultimate meaning of the strongest laws and dominator weapons. In today's sky cloud realm, there are many people who have mastered the ultimate meaning of ordinary laws, but those who have mastered the ultimate meaning of the strongest laws can be counted on one hand. The Death God's sword sighed. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a sigh, in the sky cloud realm, the only people who have mastered the ultimate profundity of the strongest laws are probably the Feather Emperor, the Little Rabbit, the Phoenix Empress, the Dragon King, and the Qilin Master. I think so too, the Death God's sword said. But how many ultimate meanings have these people mastered? Qin Feiyang was curious. I don't know. After all, I'm not a dominator weapon of the 3 forbidden zones. As for their strength, I'm definitely not as clear as White Dragon Sword and Ice Phoenix Sword. However, we can also analyze it. Judging from the Blood Dragon Blade's fear of the Dragon King, the Dragon King should have mastered at least 2 ultimate meanings of the strongest laws. The Death God's sword speculated. Qin Feiyang nodded. After all, only when the Dragon King has the strength to suppress the dominator weapons would the Blood Dragon Blade be afraid. However, although the ultimate meaning of the strongest law is very strong, it is still only comparable to the power of the dominator weapons. But the life and death law is different. The life and death law can crush all the strongest laws, so naturally, it can also crush the dominator weapons. This is what the Golden Sun Divine Sword and the others call true invincibility, the Death God's sword said. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and asked, then why didn't you and the castle tell me these things before? This is because I don't want you to bite off more than you can chew. After all, you haven't even comprehended an ordinary ultimate meaning yet. The road ahead of you is still very long. The Death God's sword explained. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He thought that he was already standing at the peak, but in fact it was just the beginning. So if possible, put other laws aside and comprehend the ultimate meaning of the life and death law first. This way you won't have to be afraid of our dominator weapons. However, the life and death law is not just difficult. And no one will teach you the experience. After all, no one in this world has mastered the life and death law. Not to mention comprehending the ultimate meaning. Even the epitome of the law is probably hopeless. The Golden Sun Divine Sword chuckled. Is that so? Then what if I tell you that I have the epitome of the life and death law now? Qin Feiyang looked at it mockingly. Now, how is that possible? You're starting to imagine again. The Golden Sun Divine Sword looked down on him. Ha. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, you can observe my sea of consciousness. I really don't believe it. The Golden Sun Divine Sword released its divine sense again, and went straight to Qin Feiyang's sea of consciousness. I'll go. Very soon. It let out a roar. The epitome of the law of thunder. The epitome of the law of war. And, it was really the epitome of the law of life and death. Oh my God, how is that possible? He didn't even comprehend the first profound meaning. How could he have the epitome of the law of life and death? Could it be because he first comprehended the epitome of the law of life and death, and then mastered the law of life and death? The Silver Moon Divine Sword looked at the reaction of the Golden Sun Divine Sword, and couldn't help but suspiciously observe Qin Feiyang's sea of consciousness. It was also shocked by what it saw, the epitome of the 3 great laws. No, it was the epitome of the 5 great laws. Because the epitome of the law of life and death also contained the epitome of the law of death, and the law of life. One epitome was equivalent to 3 epitomes. The 2 divine swords never thought that they would encounter such a terrifying monster. When this kid grows up, wouldn't it be earth-shattering? How is it? Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 divine swords. Admirable. The 2 divine swords said sincerely. To be able to comprehend the law of life and death, how could it not be admirable? Then now, do you have the urge to be loyal to me? Qin Feiyang bared his teeth. Just you? I'm laughing. The 2 divine arts despised him. Chapter 3702. Laugh all you want. In any case, there will be a time for you to beg me in the future. Qin Feiyang didn't care at all. He turned to look at the sword of the Grim Reaper and asked suspiciously, "Since you can still evolve, why don't you mention going to the source land to cultivate?" Sigh. Even if we can reach the conditions for evolution through the source land, we don't have the confidence to succeed. Let's talk about it later. Right now, the source land of the Black Tortoise realm isn't enough for us sovereign weapons to run over and absorb. Even if we want to go, the kid and the castle won't agree. After all, the castle has already merged with the Black Tortoise realm. Its first consideration is the growth of the Black Tortoise realm. The sword of the Grim Reaper said. Qin Feiyang asked, "In other words, if you go to the source land to cultivate, it will affect the growth of the Black Tortoise realm?" That's right. You don't have to think about us for now. Although we are all low-level sovereign weapons, in the entire Sky Cloud realm, even if it is a powerhouse like the Dragon King, we still have the power to fight. Although people like the Dragon King may have mastered the ultimate meaning of two supreme laws, we can also join forces with the sovereign divine weapon. If we can't beat 1, 2, 3, so in the Sky Cloud realm, we are still invincible. The sword of the Grim Reaper smiled proudly. Alright, then let's wait for the castle and the kid to decide. When they feel that you can enter the source land, then you can go in. As for the tribulation, there is a good saying, counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. We will talk about it when we reach that step. Qin Feiyang smiled. The sword of the Grim Reaper smiled faintly. Don't just comfort us. You have to think about yourself, because when you comprehend the ultimate meaning, you will also undergo tribulation. We will also undergo tribulation. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course. Every living being will undergo tribulation when they comprehend the ultimate meaning. The sword of the Grim Reaper said. It seems that I really can't let my guard down. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, 2 years. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. Although he had the miniature of the law of life and death, it was still quite difficult to comprehend the life and death mysteries. The most important thing was, they only had 1,000 years of time in the Heaven Bell divine treasure, and they truly couldn't continue wasting time like this. Even if he wanted to cultivate in seclusion, he had to find the white-eyed wolf first. Only with a time array could one truly not waste a single second. He was decisive. Qin Feiyang woke up from his closed-door training. 10 years had passed, and with the sword of the Grim Reaper keeping watch, there were no blind skeletons that came to cause trouble. As for the Gold Sun Godly Sword and the Silver Moon Godly Sword, it would take them at least a few million years to completely repair their shattered bodies. Thus he was barely able to repair it. When encountering an enemy in battle, the most they could do was to help. It was almost impossible for them to contribute much. In other words, he still needed a time array. If there was a time array, even if it was only a time array that lasted 500 years in a day, 10 years would have passed. That would be more than 1,000,000 years. Even if it wasn't completely repaired, at the very least, it would still be able to face enemies head-on. Time array. Qin Feiyang muttered as he stood up and looked into the distance. It seemed that if he had the chance, he had to comprehend the time laws. This thing was simply too important. If there really was a time array, according to the accurate calculation of 500 years in a day, 10 years would be more than 8 million years. In more than 8 million years, with the help of the law miniature, he might be able to successfully comprehend the fifth profound meaning of the law of life and death. The difference was not small. Qin Feiyang scanned his surroundings and asked suspiciously, I wonder where this Li Feng and the Ice Phoenix sword went to hunt skeletons and haven't returned yet. Why are you so stupid? Before leaving, why didn't you let the sword of the Grim Reaper establish a mind contract with the Ice Phoenix sword? The Gold Sun Godly Sword looked down on him. If there was a mind contract, then he could directly contact the other party. Ugh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He really hadn't thought about this. First of all, he was still very unfamiliar with mind contracts. It was very easy to ignore them. Secondly, in his opinion, the Ice Phoenix sword and Li Feng would return after killing the skeletons in this area. But he didn't expect that they would be gone for 10 years. If Li Feng had been constantly hunting and devouring in these 10 years, Then he should have grasped a supreme profound meaning by now. After all, he had the help of the Ice Phoenix sword. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze, looked at the Gold Sun Divine Sword, and said angrily, "Let me tell you, if you encounter something in the future, don't complain so easily." "I didn't say I was smart." Gold Sun Divine Sword snorted. "Did I say I was smart?" Qin Feiyang's veins popped. Every time he talked to this guy, he got angry. Gold Sun Divine Sword said, "You didn't say it, but that's what you think in your heart." Scram. Qin Feiyang glared at it angrily, raised his head to look in the direction where Li Feng and the Ice Phoenix sword had left, and said, "Since we can't contact them, then we can only continue to search in this direction." With that, Qin Feiyang stepped on the time and space walk, and tore through the air like lightning. The Death God's sword turned into a ray of light and disappeared into Qin Feiyang's body. Gold Sun Divine Sword and Silver Moon Divine Sword hesitated for a moment, then also entered Qin Feiyang's Qi, continuing to repair their bodies. Half a month passed. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Suddenly, a faint battle fluctuation came from the left. Could it be Li Feng and the Ice Phoenix sword? Qin Feiyang's heart trembled, and immediately turned around. As the distance got closer and closer, the battle fluctuations became stronger and stronger. Wait. About an hour passed. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang stopped above a mountain range, looking at the end of the world in front of him in shock. At this point, he could already clearly feel the surging battle fluctuations. These were the battle fluctuations of the Dominator Divine Weapon. Moreover, there were more than one or two of them. The aura was not unfamiliar. It's the old devil and the others. Not good. They might be in trouble. Qin Feiyang, hurry over and take a look. Perhaps for you, this is an opportunity. Gold Sun Divine Sword's voice also sounded in Qin Feiyang's Qi. That's right. Among them, 3 of the Dominator Divine Weapons auras were the Green Cauldron, the Golden Bell, and the Ancient Pagoda. The other few Dominator Divine Weapons auras, if his judgment was not wrong, were the Foam People's Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and Fire Phoenix Sword, as well as the Dragons and Qilin's Dominator Divine Weapon. Could it be that the 3 great races were working together to subdue the Green Cauldron, and the other 2 Dominator Divine Weapons? And he remembered that after returning the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and Fire Phoenix Sword, the 2 Dominator Divine Weapons were with Princess Hufeng. The Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and Fire Phoenix Sword were in front, so Princess Hufeng must be there too. Whiz. Qin Feiyang restrained his aura and silently flew towards the battlefield. The battlefield was still far away. After all, it was a battle between Dominator Divine Weapons, and there were more than 1 or 2 of them. The battle fluctuations could naturally spread far and wide. About 4 hours passed. He finally got close to the battlefield. The terrifying destructive fluctuations could topple mountains and overturn seas, destroying everything in all directions. Qin Feiyang could not get any closer, because with his strength, if he went any closer, he would be killed by the battle fluctuations. Since he could not get close to the center of the battlefield, he naturally could not see anything. "Do you need this sovereign to come out and help you?" the Thanatos sword asked. The 2 great swords were definitely unreliable. As for the ancient castle, frankly speaking, in the eyes of the Thanatos sword and the other Dominator Divine Weapons, the ancient castle's status was higher than Qin Feiyang's. Because the ancient castle had merged with the Black Tortoise Realm, the Black Tortoise Realm was equivalent to the ancient castle, and the ancient castle was equivalent to the Black Tortoise Realm. If the ancient castle did not agree, even if Qin Feiyang agreed, they would not be able to enter the Black Tortoise Realm, let alone the land of origin. Moreover, because it had merged with the Black Tortoise Realm, the ancient castle was the easiest and fastest Dominator Divine Weapon to evolve. This was equivalent to saying the ancient castle was the boss of the Dominator Divine Weapons. Although the ancient castle had no intention of dominating, as long as the Dominator Divine Weapons were a little sensible, they would follow its lead. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for the Thanatos sword to hide and enjoy his life and let the ancient castle personally take action. Not yet. I'll walk around nearby first. The people of the 3 major races can't interfere in the battle of the Dominator Divine Weapons. so they might be hiding outside the battlefield. Let's figure out their details first before deciding what to do. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and secretly said something. He then activated the concealment technique and circled the battlefield from left to right, looking for them. About half an hour later, he circled to the other side of the battlefield. After a careful search, he finally saw 6 figures at the top of a giant mountain. One of them was Princess Huofeng. Of the remaining 5, 2 of them were also very familiar to Qin Feiyang. They were Qi Yefeng and the Silver Dragon's leader. Qi Yefeng naturally could not forget. The white-eyed wolf's law of life was stolen from her. This was their mortal enemy. As for the Silver Dragon's leader, although they had only met once before entering the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure, Qin Feiyang had a deep impression of this person. Firstly, it was because of the little princess of the dragons. Secondly, it was because when they were ambushed in the Death Glacier, only the Silver Dragon's leader did not come. Therefore, at that time in the Heavenly Cloud Sea, he paid special attention to this super expert. The remaining 3 were 2 men and a woman. They all looked incomparably old, but their auras were unfathomable. Each of them had a sense of fatal danger lurking in their bodies. Qin Feiyang also had a little impression of these 3 people. They were the dragons, the Feng people, and the hidden experts of the Kirin clan. The so-called hidden experts were naturally existences who had mastered the ultimate profound. The 3 hidden experts stood side by side, looking at the center of the battlefield, their eyes shining. Princess Huofeng, the Silver Dragon's leader, and Qi Yefeng stood behind the 3 of them, looking at their backs with eyes full of reverence. Qin Feiyang observed for a moment, swept past the giant mountain without anyone noticing, and continued to search ahead. The battle was so intense. Perhaps there were other people lurking nearby. For example, the sea beasts and divine beasts of the land of buried gods and the Heavenly Cloud Sea. These were all his allies. If he could meet a few, then he would no longer be alone. If he could meet an ally who mastered the law of time, that would be even more perfect. Chapter 3703. However, searching around the edge of the battlefield, he did not meet anyone else. Helpless, Qin Feiyang could only return to the top of the mountain and secretly stare at Princess Huofeng and the others. But suddenly, he vaguely noticed that there was a giant mountain behind him, and on the top of the mountain, there seemed to be a figure flashing past. Qin Feiyang, with a trace of suspicion, turned around and flew to the top of the mountain. At that moment, he showed a surprised expression. The top of the mountain was broken and piled up with huge rocks. Behind one of the huge rocks, there was a person lying down. This was a middle-aged man, with a burly figure and fiery red hair, sneakily lying on the rock, staring at Princess Huofeng and the others on the giant mountain in front of him. Looking at the back of Princess Huofeng, there was a trace of killing intent hidden in his eyes. Qi Xiong. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He never thought that he would meet this person. At that time he did not see Qi Ji in the sea of heavenly clouds. He only saw Qi Xiong and already knew that Qi Ji should have given this opportunity to Qi Xiong. After all, they were brothers. It was human nature for the older brother to take care of the younger brother. It was just that he did not expect to meet Qi Xiong so soon. Wait. Qi Yefeng and the reclusive old antiques of the Kirin clan were in front. Why didn't Qi Xiong join them? Why did he have to hide in the back alone? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's gaze fell on the back of Princess Huofeng. It seemed that Qi Xiong intended to find an opportunity to get rid of Princess Huofeng here. After all, at that time in the Kirin Holy Land, Princess Huofeng also humiliated him. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Then let's see who is the oriole. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. Qi Xiong's existence may not only be against Princess Huofeng, but also against the silver dragons and the reclusive old antiques of the dragons. Green cauldron, ancient pagoda, golden bell, 3 sovereign-level divine weapons. That was a fatal temptation. Perhaps this was all part of Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng's scheme. First, he would ask the dragons and the Feng people to help suppress the 3 sovereign divine weapons. Then he would ask Qi Xiong to kill Princess Huofeng and the others. This way, the 3 sovereign divine weapons would fall into the Qilin clan's hands. Qi Xiong now also had the ability to do so. Since Qi Ji hadn't come, his sovereign weapon had to be in Qi Xiong's hands. No, Qi Xiaoren seemed to have come to the Heaven Bell Divine Treasury as well. Could Qi Ji have given his sovereign weapon to Qi Xiaoyan? It was a little hard to guess. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. No matter who it was, he could not let Qi Xiong's scheme succeed. After all, the Green Cauldron, the Golden Bell, and the ancient pagoda had all helped him. At the center of the battlefield, there were a total of 7 sovereign-level divine weapons. On one side was the Green Cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the Golden Bell. On the other side was the Flaming Phoenix God Jade, the Flaming Phoenix Sword, a silver divine bow, and a thin sword. The thin sword was Qi Yefeng's sovereign-level divine weapon. Back in the Qilin sacred ground, this sovereign-level divine weapon had caused Qin Feiyang and the others a lot of trouble. The divine bow was silver-white, and the bowstring was as thin as a cow's hair. It shone with a dazzling divine light. This was the Silver Dragon clan's sovereign-level divine weapon, the Silver Dragon God Bow. The situation of 4 against 3 put the Green Cauldron's 3 sovereign-level divine weapons in a very passive situation. Although the Flaming Phoenix God Jade and the other 4 sovereign-level divine weapons couldn't suppress them, they still had the advantage in numbers. As long as the Flaming Phoenix God Jade and the others were given enough time, the 3 sovereign-level divine weapons would be defeated sooner or later. At the mountain peak ahead, the reclusive old man from the dragons suddenly smiled and said, "What a coincidence! We've come to the Heaven Bell Divine Treasury and encountered the Green Cauldron again." Indeed. Although I wasn't present the last time, I heard about it from others. Back then, our 3 races worked together to suppress it. The reclusive old man from the Qilin clan nodded and smiled. The former had white hair and was extremely old, while the latter had white hair and a ruddy face. He had a strong back and a strong waist. It was a stark contrast. It's a pity that the Feather Emperor interfered back then. What's worse is that he actually let him go. I really don't know what the Feather Emperor was thinking. He didn't want the sovereign-level divine weapon in front of him, and insisted on being a good person. The reclusive old man from the Feng people snorted, his wrinkled face full of displeasure. It was an old woman in her 70s or 80s. She wore a fiery red robe and looked like a burning flame. Don't you know the Feather Emperor and the Human Emperor's character? They've always been good people. People like them are destined to have short lives. The reclusive old man from the dragons sneered. When Qin Feiyang heard this conversation, a trace of killing intent involuntarily flashed in his eyes. How dare they talk about the 2 old ancestors like this in front of him? This was unforgivable. All right, let's join in as well. Although we're not a match for the sovereign-level divine weapon, we can at least assist the Silver Dragon God Bow and the others. This battle must end as soon as possible. Otherwise, who knows if there won't be any accidents. The reclusive old man from the Kirin clan had a cold glint in his eyes. All right. The reclusive old men from the dragons and the Feng people nodded. Boom. In the next moment, the 3 of them unleashed a terrifying divine aura and leaped into the battlefield like lightning. You can participate in the battle between the sovereign-level divine weapons just by mastering the ultimate profundity of an ordinary law. Qin Feiyang was surprised. It's definitely impossible to fight against the sovereign-level divine weapon alone. But it's still possible to assist from the side. Moreover, it can also put some pressure on the sovereign-level divine weapon. The Golden Sun Divine Sword transmitted its voice. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and join in. This is a good opportunity. As long as you save the old devil and the others, they might change their minds and leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure with you. The Silver Moon Divine Sword hurriedly urged. There's no rush. Qin Feiyang shook his head. There's still no rush? Let me tell you, if you wait until the old devil and the others are severely injured by the 3 races, the castle and the Sword of the Grim Reaper won't be able to defeat the 4 sovereign-level divine weapons of the 3 races. Because we can't join in the battle now, the Golden Sun Divine Sword said. That's right. Qin Feiyang slapped his head. It turned out that he had planned to appear at the last moment. This way, the green cauldron, the ancient pagoda and the golden bell would be more grateful to him. But because of this, he had neglected the strength of the three races. The three races had 4 sovereign-level divine weapons and 3 reclusive old men. If he waited until the green cauldron, the ancient pagoda and the golden bell were severely injured, he would become the prey of the 3 races. It seemed that he had to act early, because if he acted now, the castle, the sword of the Grim Reaper, the green cauldron and the other 2 sovereign-level divine weapons would be a 5 versus 4 situation. The odds of winning would always be on their side. At that thought, Qin Feiyang lowered his head and looked at Qi Xiong. The only uncertainty was whether Qi Ji's sovereign-level divine weapon was with Qi Xiaoyan or Qi Xiong. If it was with Qi Xiong, the 3 races also had 5 sovereign-level divine weapons. This was a situation where both sides were evenly matched. It would still be difficult for them to win. After all, the 3 races still had 3 reclusive old men. Killing him would be child's play. Qin Feiyang asked through voice transmission. In your current state, are you confident you can deal with those 2 old men? I don't think we can kill them, but we can definitely pin them down. Isn't it your fault? Why did you beat us up for no reason? Otherwise, I could have easily dealt with these small fries by myself. The more the 2 swords thought about it, the angrier they became. Qin Feiyang felt helpless when he heard the 2 swords' criticism. These 2 scoundrels were clearly the ones who were too shameless. But now they were blaming him. Even if they wanted to shift the blame, they shouldn't do it like this. I'll endure it. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said through voice transmission, if Qi Xiong really has a sovereign-level divine weapon, help me pin down those 3 old men. Leave the chief of the silver dragons, Qi Xiong, Princess Huofeng and Qi Yefeng to me. No problem. The 2 swords replied. In fact, between a son and a younger brother, one would usually choose the son. In other words, the chances of Qi Ji giving the sovereign-level divine weapon to Qi Xiaoyan were higher. However, he thought that Qi Ji didn't play by the rules. Moreover, Qi Xiaoyan wasn't an ordinary person. Perhaps he was confident that he could survive in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, even without a sovereign-level divine weapon, so he gave the weapon to Qi Xiong. At the mountain peak below, at this moment, Qi Xiong seemed to be ready to make a move. Qin Feiyang noticed this, and his eyes flashed. He couldn't hold back anymore. It seemed like Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng had planned this together. Suddenly Qi Xiong moved. His aura was restrained to the extreme, and like a ghost lurking in the night, he silently approached the mountain peak. At the same time Qi Yefeng, who was standing at the mountain peak, had a flash of light in her eyes. Obviously, Qi Xiong had secretly informed her. The 2 of them were planning to attack Princess Huofeng and the silver dragons from the inside. Princess Huofeng and the silver dragons were focused on the battlefield in front of them. They didn't notice Qi Xiong behind them, nor did they notice Qi Yefeng's abnormality. In fact, they never thought that Qi Yefeng and Qi Xiong would scheme against them. This was because before entering the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, the 3 races had already formed an alliance to search for opportunities and deal with Qin Feiyang together. Whether it was Princess Huofeng or the Silver Dragons, they were people who cared about the big picture. This point was not difficult to see from the fact that Fire Phoenix First Princess had let Bing Rinning go on White Crane Island. However, they cared about the big picture, but it didn't mean that others would. Whether it was Qi Yefeng or Qi Xiong, from what they did in the Qilin sacred ground, it was clear that they were selfish people. I didn't expect that I would have the chance to enjoy such a wonderful show. However, isn't it unwise for them to choose to attack at this time? Aren't they afraid that the dragons and Feng people will fall out with them? The Golden Sun Divine Sword smiled mockingly. They won't. As long as they act quickly and quickly end their lives, the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, the Fire Phoenix Sword, and the Silver Dragon Divine Bow won't be able to detect the accident that happened here. After all, the center of the battlefield is still a long way from here, Qin Feiyang thought to himself. And at this time, this area was flooded by the battle fluctuations of the Sovereign Divine Weapon. Even if Qi Yefeng and Qi Xiong's sneak attack didn't go so smoothly, and Princess Huofeng and the Silver Dragon God resisted, as long as the movement wasn't too big, it would be covered by the battle fluctuations of the sovereign divine weapon. Chapter 3704. Finally, Qi Xiong approached the peak of the mountain. He carefully looked for cover and approached Princess Huofeng. The mountain was littered with rocks, so it was easy to find cover. Qin Feiyang hid in the void and followed Qi Xiong. From his point of view, the sneaky Qi Xiong looked quite comical. When Qi Xiong sneaked to the last cover, he was only a few meters away from Princess Huofeng and the silver dragons. In fact, a few meters away, no matter how well he hid, it was easy for the other party to notice. After all, experts at the sovereign realm were far more sensitive to danger than ordinary people. As for now, Princess Huofeng and the silver dragon did not notice it at all, because of the fluctuations from the battle of the sovereigns. These fluctuations could hide everything. In addition, their attention was focused on the battlefield in front of them. Their sense of danger was greatly reduced. Do it! Qi Xiong smiled coldly and shouted at Qi Yefeng. Boom! The two of them attacked almost at the same time. Qi Yefeng slapped at Princess Huofeng's sea of qi. Qi Xiong also dashed out from behind cover like a bolt of lightning. He was holding a dagger in his hand, which he aimed directly at the silver dragon chief's back. Before the two of them could react, their sea of qi was destroyed on the spot. Qi Yefeng, what are you doing? Princess Huofeng stared at Qi Yefeng in shock and anger. Qi Xiong, why are you here? The silver dragons exclaimed. Qi Xiong. Princess Huofeng was shocked and immediately looked at the silver dragons. She saw a middle-aged man standing behind the silver dragons. Who else could it be but Qi Xiong? Why can't I be here? Qi Xiong smiled coldly. As his voice fell, Qi Xiong waved his hand and a soundproof barrier appeared. Although the battlefield of the sovereign's divine weapons was far away, it was better to be cautious. Princess Huofeng and the silver dragons looked at each other, and then at Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng. She said in a low voice, You colluded with each other? Yes. How can we let you have the three sovereigns' divine weapons? Qi Yefeng nodded. Don't forget that we have already formed an alliance. The silver-haired patriarch was seething with anger. Alliance? Not bad. We have indeed formed an alliance, but I don't think there's any rule that says that we can't make a move on you. Qi Xiong and the other man laughed. Princess Huofeng said gloomily, You're breaking the rules. Aren't you afraid that Dragon King and Feng Ho will find out and settle the score with your Qilin clan? Young man, you are still too naive. When we leave the Heaven Bell Divine Treasury, the Divine Kingdom will descend. Do you think that in the face of the powerful Divine Kingdom, Feng Ho and the Dragon King would still have the mood to find trouble with our Kirin clan? No. By then, even Feng Ho and the others will have no choice but to swallow their anger and fight against the Divine Kingdom with us. Qi Yefeng chuckled. Hearing this, Princess Huofeng and Princess Yu's hearts sank. He had really been plotted against. They were still too naive. They thought that Qi Yefeng would also look at the big picture like them. But the other party didn't think so at all. Instead of worrying about my Kirin clan, you might as well worry about your current situation first. I've already endured the two of you to the extreme. Qi Xiong sneered. At this moment, Qin Feiyang was also standing inside the soundproof barrier. Hearing this, a trace of curiosity crept up on his face. Princess Huofeng didn't mention it for the time being. After all, she had offended Qi Xiong in the Kirin Holy Land. However, the silver dragons didn't seem to have done anything to let Qi Xiong down. How could he endure it to the extreme? At the same time, the silver dragons also had a puzzled look. Let's talk about you first. Qi Xiong looked at Princess Huofeng and sneered. You are obviously the princess of the Fire Phoenix clan, but you fooled around with Qin Feiyang and the others. You even spoke rudely to me in the Kirin Holy Land. Do you really think that with the Fire Feng people backing you up, I won't dare to touch you? You are a despicable person, and you won't let others say it? Princess Huofeng's eyes were gloomy. I'm despicable? Qi Xiong laughed and looked at Princess Huofeng. He shook his head and said, It seems that your father has really spoiled you. You don't even know the basic respect for your elders. After saying that, he raised his hand and slapped Princess Huofeng hard on the face. An eye-catching palm print immediately appeared, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. She looked pitiful. Your father can't bear to teach you a lesson, then let me do it. Qi Xiong kicked again. Princess Huofeng immediately half-knelt on the ground. Her lower abdomen was exposed, and her face was twisted in pain. Do you deserve respect? Besides, even your own son is like that. Are you qualified to teach me a lesson? Princess Huofeng was furious to the extreme. Don't mention my son. When Qi Xiong heard this, he was like an enraged beast. He rushed forward and grabbed Princess Huofeng's neck. He said ferociously, "If it weren't for you, my son's power of law would not have been taken away. He deserves it. Tell me the truth." Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden-Winged Wolf King. If it weren't for their identities, regardless of talent or character, they would be above you. The dignified Kirin clan, for your own selfishness, you didn't hesitate to plot against your allies behind their backs. I really feel sorry for you. Princess Huofeng sneered. Even now you're still protecting them? Look at you, you're really stubborn. Qi Xiong stepped on Princess Huofeng with one foot. His face was incomparably ferocious. To this, Qi Yefeng did not show the slightest bit of sympathy. The Silver Dragon's chief was furious. He said in a deep voice, "No matter what, she's still a junior. If you want to kill her, be straightforward. Why do you have to torture her like this?" Shut up. Qi Xiong stared at the Silver Dragon's chief and laughed sinisterly. Since you're in such a hurry to jump out, then I'll talk about you. The Silver Dragon's chief said. Then tell me, how did I offend you? Qi Xiong said. Do you still remember the last time when I joined forces with you to ambush Qin Feiyang and the others at the entrance of the Death Glacier? I remember. I didn't go. The Silver Dragons nodded. Then why didn't you go? 9 of the 10 great clan leaders of the dragons have gone. You're the only one who didn't go. Tell me, what's the meaning of this? As a common enemy, shouldn't we all be united against a common enemy? If you're so cowardly, do you still deserve to be the Silver Dragon clan's patriarch? If I'm a joke, then aren't you an even bigger joke? Qi Xiong shouted angrily. Just because of this, you're starting to hate me? The Silver Dragon's chief was stunned. Isn't that enough? Qi Xiong sneered. Good. Your Excellency's breadth of mind is admirable. The Silver Dragon's chief was so angry that he laughed. How could there be such a self-righteous person in this world? You told me to ambush Qin Feiyang, and I had to listen to you and ambush Qin Feiyang? What the hell? Not to mention Qi Xiong, even the ancestors of the Qilin clan were not qualified to order him, the Silver Dragon's chief. The only person qualified to order him was the leader of the dragons, the Dragon King. The more he thought about it, the more ridiculous it was. You don't know how to repent, and you're still being sarcastic with me? Qi Xiong was like an angry lion. He rushed in front of the Silver Dragons and raised his hand to slap him. If you have the ability, then try slapping me. Let's see if this matter can be resolved peacefully. The Silver Dragon's chief was not afraid at all. His eyes were full of coldness. Hearing this, Qi Xiong's hand paused in the air. His expression was uncertain. Even your big brother Qi Ji, the leader of the Fire Qilin clan, has to be polite to me, let alone you. If you dare to slap me today, I promise that the soul I left outside will immediately bring people to kill your Qilin sacred land. You should have left your soul in the Qilin sacred land too, right? Do you think you'll be able to keep the wisp of soul you left behind? Don't forget that Qin Feiyang is still in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. If you didn't have that strand of soul to protect your life, then there's no need for me to tell you what would happen to you when you encountered Qin Feiyang, right? The Silver Dragon's chief sneered. Qi Xiong's pupils shrank. Qi Yefeng could not help but frown. The Silver Dragon's chief was different from Princess Huofeng. Although Princess Huofeng was the daughter of the Fire Feng people, she was still a junior. However, the Silver Dragon's chief was one of the leaders of the dragons. Whether it was strength or status, he was not inferior to them. If it really reached the point of a life and death struggle, as long as the Silver Dragon's chief said a word, the flames of war between the two clans would completely start. They could not bear the consequences of such a thing. Qi Yefeng looked at Princess Huafeng and asked, "You also left your soul in the phoenix nest?" "Of course." Princess Huafeng smiled coldly. Qi Yefeng's eyes darkened. The Fire Feng people's chief was also an extremely protective person, and Princess Huafeng was his beloved daughter. Once this matter was known by the Fire Feng people's chief, he would undoubtedly fly into a rage. Originally, they thought that Princess Huafeng did not leave her soul in the phoenix nest, so as long as they did it cleanly, the Fire Feng people's chief would not be able to find out. But now, it seemed that they could not hide it at all. However, it was already too late to regret. Qi Yefeng looked at Qi Xiong and sighed. "Let's give them a quick death." At the very least, they could not let Qi Xiong continue to torture them like this. Otherwise, there would really be no way to save them. "Qi Xiong, why don't you hit them? If you don't hit them with this slap, I will look down on you." Suddenly, a mocking voice suddenly sounded from the side. Hearing this voice, whether it was the chief of the Silver Dragons or Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng, their faces changed. A trace of joy rose in Princess Huafeng's eyes. As the voice fell, Qin Feiyang came out of his invisible state. Qin Feiyang. Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng immediately looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Previously, the chief of the Silver Dragons had just mentioned this person. They did not expect him to appear immediately. Was his mouth blessed? "Don't move. The sovereign divine weapon beside me is not to be trifled with." Qin Feiyang looked at Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng and laughed. Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng originally wanted to escape, but when they heard this, they immediately became obedient and trembled. "Why are you here?" Princess Huafeng ran to Qin Feiyang's side and asked suspiciously. Although Feng Ho had already told them to get rid of Qin Feiyang if they had the chance, but now that she saw Qin Feiyang, no matter what, she did not have the slightest hostility in her heart. On the contrary, when she saw Qin Feiyang appear, it was as if she had seen her family. Her heart felt unprecedentedly at ease. Chapter 3705. Speaking of which, this is fate. Not only did I meet you, but I also met them. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Them. Princess Huafeng was taken aback. When Qin Feiyang spoke of them, he was naturally referring to the Green Cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the Great Golden Bell. However, he didn't give any unnecessary explanations. He glanced at the Fire Phoenix eldest princess and said, "Why are you so close to me? We are opponents now." Princess Huafeng's expression froze. She lowered her head and said, "You already know? There's nothing wrong with my ears. I heard your conversation just now." Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. "Let me explain," Princess Huafeng hurriedly said. "No need to explain. I can understand your situation. After all, it's Feng Ho's idea." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. He looked up at Qi Xiong and said playfully, "Why don't you hit him? The chief of the Silver Dragons can't fight back now. What are you afraid of? Why do you want me to look down on you? What do you want to do?" Qi Xiong's eyes were gloomy. "Isn't it because I want to see the three races form an alliance? So I have to find a way to break up your alliance. If you slap the chief of the Silver Dragons now, the dragons won't let it go. In that case, I'll just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight." Qin Feiyang laughed. "You really don't hide it at all." Qi Xiong's eyes flashed coldly. "Why should I hide it? Do you think I'm like you? You say one thing on the surface and another behind it? It's too tiring. Let me tell you, if you don't slap him today, I'll let you have a taste of being trampled under someone's foot and living a life worse than death." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Is he helping me to avenge my humiliation?" Princess Huafeng muttered. Qi Xiong clenched his fists. "It seems that you can only show off with your mouth." Qin Feiyang shook his head in disappointment. In fact, he was forcing Qi Xiong. He wanted to see if Qi Xiong had a sovereign-level divine weapon. From the looks of it, there shouldn't be any. Based on Qi Xiong's personality, if Qi Ji's sovereign divine weapon was in his hands, he would have attacked in anger. "All right. I'm not in the mood to torture you. The two of you can just kill yourselves. In any case, I've left my divine soul outside. It would be a complete waste of time for me to act personally." Qin Feiyang looked at Qi Xiong and Qi Yefeng. Wasting time? The two of them were furious. He wasn't even willing to make a move. How much did he look down on them? What is it? Do I need to repeat myself? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. You know that we left our divine souls outside. Yet you still dare to be arrogant? We are not afraid of death, but what about you? If I'm not wrong, you didn't leave your soul outside before coming to the Heaven Bell Divine Treasure, right? Let's perish together. Qi Xiong laughed sinisterly as a destructive aura rushed out of his body. Self-destruct. That's right. You want to sit back and reap the benefits? No way. Qi Yefeng also wanted to self-destruct. They wanted to use self-destruction to alarm the sovereign divine weapon, so that Qin Feiyang wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. Sigh. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Perish together? They were all super experts. How could they be so naive? If he didn't have enough confidence, would he dare to appear so openly? The Grim Reaper sword appeared. The sharp light instantly swept out in all directions. Accompanied by a painful scream, the two sea of qi shattered on the spot. The self-destruction was forcefully cut off. Qin Feiyang stepped forward, grabbed Qi Xiong, and pressed him to the ground. He smiled and said, "How does it feel to be pressed against the ground?" "You will die a horrible death." Qi Xiong roared. "I'm sorry. Not only will I live well, but I will also live a more exciting life than you." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The law of destruction gushed out from his palm and drowned Qi Xiong. Accompanied by a painful scream, Qi Xiong was crushed bit by the power of destruction. Although his divine soul was left outside, the pain before death was enough to be remembered for the rest of his life. Good kill. Princess Huofeng and the silver dragons couldn't help but clap their hands and cheer. What about you? Qin Feiyang clapped his hands and looked up at Qi Yefeng. It's a small world. Let's wait and see. Qi Yefeng looked at Qin Feiyang coldly and immediately destroyed her divine soul. Because she knew that Qin Feiyang definitely wouldn't let her go. So instead of being tortured to death, it was better to die directly. At least it wouldn't be so painful. At least you know your place. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at the silver dragons and Princess Huofeng. Thank you, little brother. The silver dragons bowed and thanked him. Senior, you don't have to be so polite. Similarly, I don't want to make things difficult for you. After all, I am more or less related to your daughter, so I hope you can end it yourself. Compared to when he faced Qi Xiong and the other two, Qin Feiyang's current attitude toward the Silver Dragon clan's clan chief was already considerably polite. Understood. The Silver Dragons nodded and glanced at the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful that he had to leave before encountering any good fortune. At the same time, he also felt a myriad of emotions. The current Qin Feiyang was no longer the Qin Feiyang who had just entered the Sky Cloud realm. Now, even supreme experts like them had to be respectful in front of this child. Sigh. With a sigh, the Silver Dragons decisively destroyed their divine soul. Only Princess Huofeng was left at the scene. Don't look at me. I can't just leave like this. But you and the Silver Dragon's daughter, what's the relationship between the two of you? Princess Huofeng saw Qin Feiyang looking at her and asked curiously. It has nothing to do with you. Also, we're talking about you now. Why are you staying in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure? Qin Feiyang frowned. Why do you care? Princess Huofeng snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang's face darkened as he said angrily. You shouldn't have come to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure in the first place. It had already opened the door of potential, and stayed in the phoenix nest to cultivate in seclusion. Was it uncomfortable? Why did it have to come here to join in the fun? If you can come, why can't I come? Princess Huofeng was a little unconvinced. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead weakly. Princess Huofeng secretly smiled proudly, as if to say, see, even this fierce person can't do anything to me. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and asked shyly, what about him? Who? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Princess Huofeng blushed and said angrily, aren't you asking the obvious? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule, and he frowned very seriously. How would I know what you're asking? Aren't you annoying? Of course I'm asking him. Princess Huofeng was extremely anxious. Who is it? Can you make it clear? I don't like to talk in riddles. Qin Feiyang was suspicious, but he was secretly happy in his heart. It seemed that this woman still had some feelings for the white-eyed wolf. Princess Huofeng was so angry that she was trembling, and finally said weakly, the white-eyed wolf. So you're asking about the white-eyed wolf? Qin Feiyang suddenly realized. Princess Huofeng blushed and asked, I didn't see him at the Sea of Heavenly Clouds. Did he not come in? Qin Feiyang pretended to ponder. What's wrong? Did something happen to him? Seeing this, Princess Huofeng's face immediately revealed a trace of anxiety. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply, and a trace of sadness appeared on his face. He sighed and said, All right, since you missed the white-eyed wolf, I won't make things difficult for you today. What do you mean by this? Princess Huofeng asked nervously. It's a long story, but I believe that the white-eyed wolf spirit in heaven will be very gratified to know that there are still people who miss him. Qin Feiyang lamented. Spirit in heaven. When Princess Huofeng heard this, her body suddenly stiffened, and her expression became dull. Sure enough, it's only useful to be stimulated. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. But isn't this method of stimulation a bit inappropriate? The Grim Reaper's sword transmitted. Qin Feiyang said proudly. In terms of strength, I'm not as good as you, but in terms of the matters between men and women, you're definitely not as good as me. Is that so? But why did I hear that you were an idiot in love before? The Grim Reaper's sword laughed mockingly. Who said that? Qin Feiyang said angrily. It doesn't matter who said it. In any case, you're really not qualified to talk about the matters between men and women. The Grim Reaper's sword looked down on him. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. No matter what, he was still an experienced person. An experienced person was not qualified? Boom. At this moment, a terrifying aura rolled over. Qin Feiyang was shocked. He looked up and said in a deep voice, This aura, it should be that reclusive old antique of the dragons. Yes. He should have sensed the fluctuations of Qi Xiong's self-destruction. So he ran back to check. The Grim Reaper's sword replied. Since we've already been exposed, there's no need to hide anymore. Let's go. Let's go to the battlefield directly and give you a surprise. Qin Feiyang laughed. The Grim Reaper's sword immediately released its divine power and wrapped around Qin Feiyang. Suddenly it asked, What about her? Qin Feiyang turned to look at Princess Huofeng, who was in a daze. After pondering for a while, he said helplessly, Take her with us. After all, she might be my future sister-in-law. I can't just leave you here and let her fend for herself. Sister-in-law? It's a bit too early to say that. The Grim Reaper's sword wrapped around Princess Huofeng again. Its divine power condensed into a barrier to protect the two of them. Then, it turned into a stream of light and flew toward the center of the battlefield without hiding. Soon, a figure came toward them. White hair and an old body. It was that reclusive old antique of the dragons. Qin Feiyang. When he saw Qin Feiyang, the white-haired old man's face suddenly changed. He immediately stopped in the void with a trace of fear in his eyes. What he was afraid of was naturally not Qin Feiyang, but the Grim Reaper's sword that was floating above Qin Feiyang's head. Why is Princess Huofeng the only one left? Where are Qi Yefeng and the silver dragons? What did you do to them? The white-haired old man stared at Qin Feiyang angrily. Killed, Qin Feiyang said expressionlessly. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly rushed toward the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man was angry and panicked. He kept retreating. Chapter 3706. A reclusive old man is afraid of me? Qin Feiyang pursed his lips in ridicule. He was polite to the chief of the silver dragons because of the little princess of the dragons. After all, they were partners. Besides, the chief of the silver dragons didn't come during the ambush last time, which was a kind attitude. As for the other dragons, he wasn't in such a good mood, so he was very polite. Hearing this, the white-haired old man felt humiliated and said angrily, Put down your sovereign divine weapon if you dare. Let's see how I kill you. Are you stupid? If it were you, would you put down your sovereign divine weapon and fight someone who is much stronger than you with your bare hands? Qin Feiyang sneered. The sword of Thanatos sped up. The white-haired old man immediately turned around and ran toward the center of the battlefield. Why are they here? At the center of the battlefield, the sovereign divine weapons, the Feng people and the reclusive old men of the Kirin clan all sensed the aura of Qin Feiyang and the sword of Thanatos. Two completely different emotions arose in their hearts. The reclusive antiques of the Phoenix clan and the Qilin clan, as well as the four sovereign divine weapons of the Fire Phoenix clan and the Divine Jade clan, were all nervous. The Green Cauldron, the Golden Bell and the Ancient Pagoda were a little happy. Whoosh! The white-haired old man rushed to the center of the battlefield and landed next to the Feng people and the two old men of the Kirin clan. Is it him? The reclusive old man of the Feng people asked hurriedly. Yes. The white-haired old man nodded. This little bastard really knows how to join in the fun. The two old men's eyes darkened. Little bastard? You don't like me that much. It seems that I don't have any deep hatred for you. Qin Feiyang came and stood in the void opposite them, looking at them with a smile. The old man of the Kirin clan said with a hoarse laugh, Little brother Qin, how can we not like you? That's not true. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Old antique Feng people looked at the barrier and saw that Princess Huafeng was alone. He asked suspiciously, Where are Qi Yefeng and the others? He's been killed. Old Dragon said in a deep voice. What? The pupils of the Feng people and Qilin races old antiques contracted. As expected, this was a vicious and merciless junior. But why did he keep Princess Huafeng alive? Impossible. I don't believe it. You must be lying to me. At this moment, Princess Huafeng finally recovered. She rushed in front of Qin Feiyang and roared hysterically. Princess Huafeng's sudden shout not only startled Qin Feiyang, but also the three old antiques and the sovereign divine weapons. What's going on? Qin Feiyang said helplessly. I say, big sis, can you tell what the situation is right now? I don't care. You have to make it clear to me. Princess Huafeng shook her head. Alas, I can only say I'm sorry. Cherish each other in your next life. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and pushed Princess Huafeng away. When Princess Huafeng heard this, it was as if she had been struck by a bolt from the blue, and she directly collapsed. Old antique Feng people looked at Princess Huafeng in surprise and asked, Wu, what's wrong with you? But Princess Huafeng didn't seem to hear him and kept mumbling. Why did it become like this? Her eyebrows were filled with pain and despair. The three old antiques looked at each other. What on earth was going on? Don't worry. She's fine. She'll be fine after calming down for a while. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them and smiled faintly. Old antique Feng people looked suspiciously at Princess Huafeng, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Since Brother Qin is here, we might as well join forces. Join forces? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The old antiques of the dragons and Kirins looked at each other and frowned. Frankly speaking, they were very unwilling to join forces. But in the current situation, if they didn't join forces, then Qin Feiyang would definitely interfere. Old antique Feng people pointed at the ancient pagoda, the green cauldron, and the golden bell and asked, Do you see those three sovereign divine weapons? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. They are the sovereign divine weapons of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. As long as we join forces, we will definitely be able to take them down. Old antique Feng people smiled confidently. Qin Feiyang glanced at the three sovereign divine weapons. After such a long battle, the bodies of the three sovereign divine weapons had already suffered some damage. At this moment, the green cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the golden bell's hearts were also drumming. They were already in an extremely dangerous situation when the three races joined forces. If Qin Feiyang joined forces, what would happen? One had to know. They knew of Qin Feiyang's strength, and had even seen with their own eyes how the golden dragon spear, white dragon sword, ice phoenix sword, and black dragon mirror were all subdued by Qin Feiyang. Not to mention joining forces with the three great races. Even if it was just Qin Feiyang alone, he could easily suppress them. But Was Qin Feiyang such a person? After all, they had helped Qin Feiyang back then. Could it be that this human was also a two-faced despicable person? After confirming the injuries of the three sovereign divine weapons, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at the three old antiques, smiling. It's not a problem to join forces. The three of them were overjoyed. The mood of the green cauldron and the other two sovereign divine weapons instantly fell to the bottom. It seemed that they had really made a mistake. Qin Feiyang looked at the three old antiques and said with a faint smile, "After all, we are now four forces joining forces. No matter what, there should be four sovereign divine weapons for us to share." That is indeed a problem. However, we can wait until we suppress them first, then we can slowly discuss it. That's right. If it really doesn't work, we will use the most primitive method and draw lots to decide. The three old antiques laughed. Draw lots to decide? This method is quite humane. However, at this point, Qin Feiyang suddenly changed the topic and chuckled. I'm more interested in the sovereign divine weapons of your three races. What? The three of them were shocked. The Fire Phoenix Divine Jade Fire Phoenix Sword, Silver Dragon God Bao, and Qi Yefeng's sovereign divine weapon could not help but feel their hearts tighten. This tone was not right. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted slightly, and he raised his head to look at the three sovereign divine weapons, cupped his hands and smiled. Three seniors, we are really fated to meet again so soon. The three sovereign divine weapons were stunned. Such a respectful tone, such a friendly attitude. Could it be that they had misunderstood this human? At the same time, the three old antiques and the four sovereign divine weapons were shocked. Qin Feiyang knew the three sovereign divine weapons? Qin Feiyang's gaze turned and landed on the three old antiques. He smiled. You still don't know, right? These three seniors have helped me before. Moreover, Green Cauldron knows my ancestor, the Emperor of Feathers. Do you think I will help you suppress them? The three old antiques' hearts sank when they heard this. Am I, Qin Feiyang, the kind of person who bites the hand that feeds me? I am sorry. If I don't suppress them, it will be you. Qin Feiyang looked at Green Cauldron and the other two sovereigns' divine weapons and said, Seniors, let's join hands and kill them. That's right. As expected, I didn't misjudge you. Green Cauldron laughed. You really gave me a fright. Since we are going to do it, let's do it to the end. The Ancient Pagoda and the Golden Bell also laughed. To be honest, they had been frightened earlier. Boom. The three sovereign divine weapons unleashed terrifying auras as they charged towards the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade's four sovereign divine weapons. With a loud clang, the ancient castle flew out from Qin Feiyang's body and charged forward with monstrous divine might. For against four, of course, they were not afraid. Damn it. The three old antiques were furious. They looked at the four sovereign divine weapons and roared. Retreat! Once Qin Feiyang decided to help Green Cauldron and the three sovereign divine weapons, they could only run away. Retreat? Is that possible? All of you die. Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The sword of the Grim Reaper immediately attacked the three old antiques with a sharp edge that could destroy heaven and earth. Whether in terms of strength or speed, the sword of the Grim Reaper was superior to them. There was no suspense at all. I wanted to learn about your ultimate ultimacy, but I am not in the mood now. When I return to the Sky Cloud realm, I will find you and ask for your advice. Qin Feiyang looked at the three old antiques and said, Okay, I hope that when the time comes, you will not hide behind the sovereign divine weapons. The three old antiques said coldly. Of course. Qin Feiyang smiled. Following a loud explosion, the three old antiques were completely destroyed by the terrifying sharpness of the sword. Clang! The sword of the Grim Reaper attacked the four sovereign divine weapons. 5 against 4. This time, the Fire Phoenix sword and the other three sovereign divine weapons were in a passive position. The Silver Dragon God Bao and Qi Yefeng's sovereign divine weapons were already afraid of retreating. However, the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and Fire Phoenix sword were desperately resisting. Don't worry about Princess Huofeng. Anyway, she left her divine soul outside. Even if she dies in Qin Feiyang's hands, it won't matter much. Break out of the encirclement with us. The silver dragon god Bao roared. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and looked at Princess Huafeng. Hey, don't be in a daze. Tell the Fire Phoenix Sword and Fire Phoenix Divine Jade to stop. Otherwise, I will destroy them together. Princess Huafeng quivered and finally came to her senses. Boom. At this time, the 4 sovereign divine weapons had already begun to break out of the encirclement. Even the ancient castle could not stop them. Princess Huafeng suddenly pointed at Qi Yefeng's sovereign divine weapons and shouted, Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, help suppress the Heavenly Star Sword. What? The Fire Phoenix Sword and Fire Phoenix Divine Jade were stunned. Why did she ask them to help suppress the Heavenly Star Sword? The Heavenly Star Sword and Silver Dragon God Bao were also shocked to the extreme. The Heavenly Star Sword came back to his senses and hurriedly shouted, Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, don't mess around. She must be controlled by Qin Feiyang. I'm not controlled by him. You guys were fighting here before, so you don't know. Qi Xiong was also nearby and teamed up with Qi Yefeng to sneak attack me and the Silver Dragons. If not for Qin Feiyang's appearance, I don't know how much I would have been tortured by them. Princess Huafeng coldly snorted. Bastard. Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, and Silver Dragon God Bao flew into a rage when they heard this. Princess Huafeng sneered. Heavenly Star Sword. I don't believe that is Qi Yefeng's sovereign divine weapon. You don't know about this? The Heavenly Star Sword was a little flustered. You guys are really good at scheming. When we and the 3 sovereign divine weapons of the Green Cauldron are both injured, your Qilin clan will come and reap the benefits. This is the alliance you guys were talking about. Bastard, I'm going to destroy you today. Not only the Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, and Silver Dragon God Bao were also crazily attacking the Heavenly Star Sword. As a sovereign divine weapon, how could it tolerate others using it as a pawn? Chapter 3707. This sudden scene made the ancient castle, the Sword of Death, the Green Cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the Golden Bell couldn't help but be stunned. This was too dramatic. In the blink of an eye, the Silver Dragon God Bao, the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, and the Fire Phoenix Sword all changed sides. Then now, the Heavenly Star God Sword was fighting alone, facing the 8 sovereign divine weapons alone. Wasn't this only the fate of being beaten? Clang, clang. After the ancient castle and the other 4 sovereign divine weapons came back to their senses, they once again joined the battle. There was no suspense at all in the situation of 8 against 1. In just a moment, the Heavenly Star God Sword was forcibly suppressed, and its body was torn apart. Stop! Seeing that the Silver Dragon God Bao and the 3 sovereign divine weapons had no intention of stopping, Qin Feiyang hurriedly shouted. No matter what, the Heavenly Star God Sword was also a sovereign divine weapon. If it was destroyed like this, it would be a pity. With Qin Feiyang's shout, the ancient castle and the Sword of Death immediately stood in front of the Heavenly Star God Sword, blocking the Silver Dragon God Bao, the Fire Phoenix Sword, and the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade. The Green Cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the Golden Bell, after a slight hesitation, also landed beside the ancient castle and the Sword of Death. At this moment, the Silver Dragon God Bao and the 3 sovereign divine weapons, if they dared to continue to attack, they would definitely be suppressed by the 5 sovereign divine weapons. To this, the Silver Dragon God Bao and the 3 sovereign divine weapons, although unwilling in their hearts, could only retreat to the side. They did indeed have the idea of destroying the Heavenly Star God Sword. After all, they had already agreed in advance that the 3 major races would form an alliance, but the result was that they were still plotting against them behind their backs. How could they tolerate this? However, looking at Qin Feiyang's current posture, it was clear that he wanted to subdue the Heavenly Star God Sword. Although they were all sovereign divine weapons, facing the current Qin Feiyang, they really didn't dare to offend him. Qin Feiyang breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he stopped it in time, otherwise the Heavenly Star God Sword would really be destroyed. Immediately, he looked at the shattered Heavenly Star God Sword. I submit. Before Qin Feiyang spoke, the Heavenly Star God Sword took the initiative to roar. Ugh! Qin Feiyang was stunned. Gu Bao and the other sovereign divine weapons were also shocked. Surrender just like that? Wouldn't that be too spineless? Actually, this was the smart move of the Heavenly Star God Sword. If it didn't submit now, not only the Silver Dragon God Bao, and the other two sovereign divine weapons, even Qin Feiyang wouldn't let it go. The Silver Dragon God Bao and the other three sovereign divine weapons were already enough to make it despair, let alone Qin Feiyang's 5 sovereign divine weapons. If he wanted to live, he had to be decisive. Not bad. I like your decisiveness. Make a blood oath. Qin Feiyang regained his senses, looked at the Heavenly Star God Sword and laughed. All right. The Heavenly Star God Sword did not hesitate and quickly swore a blood oath. Once the oath seal was formed, it meant that they were officially under Qin Feiyang's command. Gu Bao and the other sovereign divine weapons immediately turned from strong enemies to companions. Therefore, the Heavenly Star God Sword immediately wanted to take revenge. Qin Feiyang, why don't you take the opportunity to take the Silver Dragon God Bao, Fire Phoenix Sword, and Fire Phoenix Divine Jade? As soon as the Heavenly Star God Sword said this, the atmosphere instantly froze. The Silver Dragon God Bao, Fire Phoenix Sword, and Fire Phoenix Divine Jade were extremely nervous. Another scammer? But the two of us like it. The Gold Sun Divine Sword and the Silver Moon Divine Sword ran out and laughed. When they were forced to submit, they immediately thought of dragging others down. If this wasn't a scammer, what was? There are 2 more sovereign divine weapons? Princess Huofeng's eyes trembled. The Silver Dragon God Bao, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, and Fire Phoenix Sword were also extremely shocked. They had never seen these 2 divine swords before. Moreover, their bodies were seriously damaged. Obviously, Qin Feiyang had subdued them in the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure. How long had it been since he came to the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure? He had actually subdued 2 sovereign divine weapons. The 2 swords, the Heavenly Star God Sword, Qin Feiyang's original sovereign divine weapon, the Ancient Castle, the Horsetail Whisk, the Grim Reaper's Sword, the Blood Dragon Blade, and the sovereign divine weapons of the Demon Palace and the Heavenly Palace. Now, didn't Qin Feiyang already have 9 sovereign divine weapons? Such a foundation was already enough to compete with the 4 Forbidden Lands and the Heavenly Clouds Sea. But they didn't know. Now, Qin Feiyang didn't only have these sovereign divine weapons. He also had the Ice Phoenix Sword, the Golden Dragon Spear, the Black Dragon Mirror, and the White Dragon Sword. There were a total of 13 sovereign divine weapons. Even if he returned the Grim Reaper's Sword and the sovereign divine weapons of the Demon Palace and the Heavenly Palace, he still had the capital to compete with the Forbidden Lands. As for the Dragon King and the other giants, although they were very powerful, don't forget that Qin Feiyang also had a big killer move, the Slaughter Domain. The Fire Phoenix Sword came back to her senses and hurriedly said, Qin Feiyang, no matter what, we have some friendship after all. I hope you can show mercy. Even the sovereign divine weapons had to lower themselves to gain sympathy. That's right. Once upon a time, we fought together. If you really want to, you can look for the Silver Dragon God Bao. After all, you have always been on bad terms with the dragons. It's understandable for you to look for the Silver Dragon God Bao. The Fire Phoenix Divine Jade also said. Hearing this, the Silver Dragon God Bao said angrily, You 2 are bastards. The 2 sovereign divine weapons smiled awkwardly. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and suddenly looked at the Silver Dragon God Bao. The Silver Dragon God Bao's heart jumped. Was he really going to attack it? I won't force you. You choose. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. What? You want me to choose? The Silver Dragon God Bao was stunned. It was simply too unexpected. One had to know. In the current situation, if Qin Feiyang really wanted to force it to submit, it had no choice at all. But it never expected that he would let it decide for itself. When did this person become so kind? This was not in line with his personality. The dragons will be destroyed sooner or later. Thus, if you continue to follow the Dragon Clan, I can announce to you your future ending right now. You are destined to perish. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. So confident? The Silver Dragon God Bao sneered. Of course. The dragons are now on the decline, it's just that you don't know yet. Qin Feiyang nodded. I really don't know. The silver dragon god Bao snorted. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Then we'll wait and see. The door on my side will always be open for sovereign divine weapons like you. The silver dragon god Bao pondered for a moment and said, Okay, I'll remember what you said today. See you later. With that, the silver dragon god Bao turned around and flew away like lightning. You really let it go just like that? The golden sun divine sword was stunned. Qin Feiyang silently watched the silver dragon god Bao leave and said with a smile, I can force the other dragons to submit, but the silver dragon god Bao, it will come to me sooner or later. So confident? The golden sun divine sword was speechless. It really didn't know where this confidence came from. Whoosh! The fire phoenix sword and fire phoenix divine jade came back to their senses, and immediately rushed into Princess Huofeng's body. They were also confident that as long as they hid in Princess Huofeng's body, Qin Feiyang wouldn't do anything to them. But in fact, they were thinking too much. Qin Feiyang never thought of forcing them to submit. After all, his relationship with Princess Huofeng had already reached this point. If she really got together with the white-eyed wolf in the end, wouldn't that be equivalent to a flood rushing into the Dragon King's temple and fighting each other? Even if the white-eyed wolf didn't get together with her in the end, with the kindness and trust that Princess Huofeng had for them, he would be too embarrassed to do anything. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Princess Huofeng and said, I say, why don't you not wander around here and go back to the phoenix nest to cultivate? As for the fire phoenix divine jade and fire phoenix sword, I will take good care of them for you. Wander around? Princess Huofeng was stunned and immediately glared at Qin Feiyang and said angrily, Do I look like I'm wandering around? As for taking care of them, I don't dare to give them to you even if you have such good intentions. Cough cough. Don't doubt my intentions. Not to mention others, just for you, I really have a clear conscience. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Don't give me that. Princess Huofeng snorted and said in a low voice, Let's get down to business. Who killed him? Ah. Qin Feiyang looked at Princess Huofeng. Did she really believe his nonsense? Why didn't he realize that this woman was so innocent before? I'm asking you a question. Princess Huofeng said angrily. You want to avenge him? Qin Feiyang asked. Princess Huofeng snorted. I'm not that kind. I just want to see who has the ability to kill him. You don't mean what you say. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. But you don't have to worry about this. I will handle it myself. Princess Huofeng said angrily. You have to tell me, or I won't let you off. Then I really want to know. How do you plan to let me off? Qin Feiyang looked at her in amusement. She obviously wanted to avenge the white-eyed wolf, but she just had to be stubborn. These people were too stubborn when it came to relationships. I'll keep pestering you. I don't believe that I can't find out anything if I keep following you. Princess Huofeng said angrily. Up to you. Qin Feiyang shrugged. You. Princess Huofeng was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. Qin Feiyang walked to the green cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the golden bell and said with a smile, Seniors, I'm sorry that I acted a little late and caused you to suffer. It's fine. The green cauldron laughed hoarsely, a trace of weakness in his voice. After fighting with the silver dragon god, and the 4 sovereign divine weapons for so long, he was indeed a little weak. Then you have to be careful in the future. There are still many people from the 3 races in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. If they find you, they won't let you off easily. Qin Feiyang warned. Thank you for your concern. But then again, I thought that I had repaid the Feather Emperor for saving my life back then by helping you last time. I didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, I'll owe you another favor. It seems that the karma between this sovereign and the Qin clan is really unbreakable. The green cauldron laughed bitterly. There's nothing to owe. We're all friends. It's only right that we help each other. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Friends, the green cauldron mumbled. The ancient pagoda and the golden bell also had some thoughts in their hearts. They didn't expect that there would be such a young man among the humans. Old Death Knell, old devil, How about this? Since we have nothing to do, why don't we escort him to the exit of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure together and repay this favor? On the way, we can also take revenge on the dragons, the Foam people, and the Kirin clan. The ancient pagoda suddenly said. Chapter 3708. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he couldn't help but look at the ancient pagoda. Escort him? Really? If the three Dominator divine weapons really came to escort him, then in the future, it could be said that he would be able to kill any god or devil that stood in his way. The most important thing was, when everyone was together, he would have a lot of opportunities to convince the three Dominator divine weapons to follow him out of the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure. This proposal is fine. Lu Ding pondered for a moment and said. The Golden Bell said. Since even the old devil has agreed, this sovereign naturally has no objections. Qin Feiyang was secretly delighted when he heard this, and bowed. Then I'll have to trouble the three seniors to take care of me in the future. The three Dominator divine weapons laughed. This kit's popularity is really good. Fire Phoenix Sword and Fire Phoenix Divine Jade couldn't help but mutter when they saw this scene. Clang. Suddenly, the sound of a sword rang out. Following closely, a ray of light streaked across the sky like lightning and flew towards them. Ice Phoenix Sword. Qin Feiyang raised his head to look, and a trace of joy immediately crept onto his face. At the same time, Princess Huofeng couldn't help but frown. If the Ice Phoenix Sword was here, then Bing Renning must be here as well. I've finally found you. The Ice Phoenix Sword flew over and said happily. Qin Feiyang laughed. I was looking for you guys too. What's going on? Princess Huofeng was surprised. When enemies meet, shouldn't they fight? Why was this man and sword talking and laughing now? She's here too? Seeing that Princess Huofeng was also here, the Ice Phoenix Sword seemed to be a little nervous. I just happened to meet him. Qin Feiyang laughed. What a coincidence. The Ice Phoenix Sword was helpless. Why did he meet this woman? Now that it was following Qin Feiyang, it was equivalent to being the enemy of the Foam people. Ignore her. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and asked suspiciously. Where have you and Li Feng been in the past 10 years? Where else can we go? I've been accompanying him to hunt skeletons. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Are you sure? Qin Feiyang asked. It's been confirmed. It is indeed the same secret technique as the Blood Ancestor. In the past 10 years, he has been constantly absorbing the souls of the dead. He has already raised the power of the laws of space to the level of ultimate profundity. That's unbelievably fast. Ice Phoenix Sword exclaimed. What? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Isn't this a little too fast? In just 10 years, he had raised an ultimate law to the level of an ultimate profundity. If this continued, wouldn't he be able to raise an ultimate law to the level of an ultimate profundity before the end of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure? This was simply heaven-defying. Ice Phoenix Sword changed the topic and said in a deep voice, but now he has encountered a big problem. What trouble? Qin Feiyang was bewildered. Ice Phoenix Sword replied. Our wanton killing of dead souls has attracted the attention of the Primal Chaos Royal City. Chaos Royal City? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. What? The Primal Chaos Royal City actually noticed you. At the same time, Green Cauldron, Ancient Pagoda, Golden Bell, Gold Sun Godly Sword, and Silver Moon Godly Sword were also shocked. Qin Feiyang looked at the 5 sovereign divine weapons in surprise. Why were they so surprised as well? Yes, not only did the Primal Chaos Royal City notice us, but they also sent people to arrest us. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Why are you so careless? Even we don't dare to provoke the Primal Chaos Royal City, let alone you. Green Cauldron said in a deep voice. What exactly is the Primal Chaos Royal City? Qin Feiyang looked at Green Cauldron suspiciously. If even the sovereign divine weapons were so afraid, it was definitely not ordinary. The Primal Chaos Royal City is also a sovereign divine weapon, but its level is higher than ours. Green Cauldron said. Higher level than yours? Then isn't that an intermediate sovereign divine weapon? Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. If it was before, he definitely wouldn't know what an intermediate sovereign divine weapon meant. But now, after the Grim Reaper sword and the two battle swords explained the levels of sovereign divine weapons to him, he knew how serious this matter was. An intermediate sovereign divine weapon was comparable to an existence that grasped the ultimate meaning of the two strongest laws. Not to mention provoking such a terrifying divine weapon, it was best to run away as soon as they saw it. It might not be an intermediate sovereign divine weapon. It might be even stronger, Green Cauldron said solemnly. What? It might be even stronger? Qin Feiyang was shocked. But the Primal Chaos Royal City isn't the only terrifying one. There's someone even more terrifying. This is the master of the Primal Chaos Royal City, Green Cauldron said solemnly. Master? Qin Feiyang was bewildered. That's right. This person is also an undead, but he has already condensed a physical body, no different from you humans. He calls himself the Divine King of Primal Chaos. His strength is so strong that he can be considered the strongest person in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. All the undead in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure have to listen to his orders. You can say that he's the king here. Even we have to be respectful to him, Green Cauldron said. The Divine King of Primal Chaos, Qin Feiyang murmured. Never would he have thought that the Sky Bell Divine Treasure actually had such a peerless expert. How strong is the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the Primal Chaos Royal City? The Grim Reaper sword asked. I don't know. Rumor has it that the Primal Chaos Royal City is a pinnacle sovereign divine weapon. There are also rumors that it's an autarch sovereign divine weapon. As for the Divine King of Primal Chaos, similarly, there are many different opinions. Some say that he has already grasped the 5 ultimate meanings. There are even rumors that he has grasped the 6 ultimate meanings, Green Cauldron said. What? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Princess Huafeng and the Grim Reaper sword also trembled. Even the ancient castle was extremely fearful of them. Of course, this is just a rumor. No one knows their true strength. I'm afraid that even the 10 demon kings under him are not sure. In short, this time, you have provoked an existence that you shouldn't have provoked. Green Cauldron sighed. 10 demon kings? Qin Feiyang once again fell into a state of shock. Yes. The Divine King of Primal Chaos has 10 demon kings under him. These 10 demon kings have already condensed flesh and blood. Each of them is extremely powerful. However, speaking of which, Green Cauldron seemed to have something that he couldn't figure out and muttered to himself. However, what? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. However, the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the Primal Chaos Royal City have never cared about the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. It's even difficult to meet them. Why would they take the initiative to appear this time? In their eyes, the skeletons of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure are nothing at all. Why would they come to make things difficult for Li Feng and the Ice Phoenix sword just to hunt some skeletons? Green Cauldron's tone was full of doubts. What about the last time? When the Sky Bell Divine Treasure opened last time, did the Divine King of Primal Chaos appear? Qin Feiyang looked at the Ice Phoenix sword and asked. No. To be honest, in the past, we only heard of the existence of the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the Primal Chaos Royal City from the mouth of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. As for their original bodies and the 10 Demon Kings, I have never seen them before. The Ice Phoenix sword said. Then this is really strange. He didn't appear last time, but he ran out this time. Qin Feiyang frowned. Let's not talk about this for now. Hurry up and think of a way to save Li Feng. The Ice Phoenix sword urged. Save Li Feng? Qin Feiyang was slightly startled, and said in surprise. Don't tell me that Li Feng has already fallen into the hands of the Primal Chaos Royal City. I don't know either. The situation at that time was too dangerous. The two of us were separated when we were escaping. The Ice Phoenix sword sighed. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened and said, Quickly lead the way. Don't go. If you go, you will die. The Scarlet Gold Bell hurriedly stopped him. Qin Feiyang looked at the Green Cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the Scarlet Gold Bell, and shook his head. Thank you for your concern, but I cannot abandon my companions. As for the three seniors, the situation has forced me, so I will not force you. Finished. Qin Feiyang then kept the ancient castle, the Death God sword, and the two great divine swords, and then followed the Ice Phoenix sword and left without looking back. Wait for me. Princess Huofeng immediately chased after him. Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and Fire Phoenix Sword kept trying to persuade her not to join in the fun, but she didn't listen at all. You're really going to throw your life away? The ancient pagoda looked at Qin Feiyang's back view with a firm attitude. This was courting death. What should we do? The Scarlet Gold Bell asked. Sigh. Let's follow him and take a look. After all, he saved our lives. The Green Cauldron sighed deeply. What bad luck. The ancient pagoda and the Scarlet Gold Bell said angrily, and together with the Green Cauldron, they chased after Qin Feiyang. Princess Huofeng caught up to Qin Feiyang, looked at the Ice Phoenix sword suspiciously, and asked, What's the situation with the Ice Phoenix sword? It has already submitted to me. Qin Feiyang thought. What? Princess Huofeng was stunned. Even the Ice Phoenix sword had submitted to this bastard? What about Bing Ruoning? She asked again. Of course I've already sent her to hell. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Princess Huofeng's pupils contracted. He was indeed a ruthless person. No, you really want to follow me? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Nonsense. This princess has always kept her word. Princess Huofeng coldly snorted. Now is not the time to be willful. You heard what Lu Ding and the others said just now. The Chaos Imperial City is not something we can provoke. It's too dangerous for you and me. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. At the same time, the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and the Fire Phoenix Sword were also secretly persuading him. It's fine. I have the protection of the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and the Fire Phoenix Sword. Princess Huofeng waved her hand. Hearing this, the two sovereign divine weapons didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There was really no need to trust them so much, because when they really encountered the Chaos Imperial City, they might even have to run away. All right, if you want to follow me, then follow me. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He looked at the Ice Phoenix sword and asked, How far is it? Quite far. It took me half a year to come back. The Ice Phoenix sword said. That's indeed not an ordinary distance. Qin Feiyang whispered. The speed of the sovereign divine weapon was even faster than the instantaneous time. For example, the Sky Cloud Realm. The Sky Cloud Realm was already very big, but it only took half a month for the sovereign divine weapon to travel across the Sky Cloud Realm. And now, it would take half a year to travel from here to the scene of the incident. One could imagine how big the Sky Bell Divine Treasure was. It was estimated that the entire Sky Bell Divine Treasure would need at least dozens, or even hundreds of Sky Cloud Realm to compete with it. Chapter 3709. He really didn't expect that there would be a world bigger than the Sky Cloud Realm. Just how many terrifying experts were hidden in this Sky Bell Divine Treasure? Qin Feiyang suddenly realized that the Sky Bell Divine Treasure wasn't as simple as it looked on the surface. Swoosh. At this time, the Green Cauldron and the three sovereign divine weapons caught up. Three seniors, what are you doing? Qin Feiyang looked at them in surprise. The ancient pagoda coldly snorted. Don't misunderstand. We are not accompanying you to your death. We are just going to try and see if we can get the Chaos Imperial City to give us some face, and not make things difficult for you. Qin Feiyang's expression froze and said gratefully, Thank you. The Pure Gold Bell said, Restrain your auras, don't make too much of a commotion. Now is not the time to complicate matters. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. At that moment, whether it was Qin Feiyang, Princess Huofeng, or the Ice Phoenix sword, they all restrained their auras to the extreme. The Green Cauldron, the Ancient Pagoda, and the Pure Gold Bell were no exception. Time passed. 2 months passed. Although they had restrained their auras and encountered many skeletons along the way, when they saw the sovereign divine weapons like the Ice Phoenix sword, even the skeletons with incomplete consciousness did not dare to approach. As for the human-shaped skeletons, they who had complete consciousness naturally did not dare to provoke them. On this day, a dilapidated ancient town appeared in front of them. The ancient town covered an area of about a few miles. In this endless and desolate land, it seemed very inconspicuous. The ice phoenix sword let out a surprised sound. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The ice phoenix sword said suspiciously. When I came back, I didn't seem to have seen this ancient town. It can't be. Qin Feiyang was surprised. It couldn't have appeared out of thin air, right? Let me confirm. The ice phoenix sword stopped, and the divine sense rolled out in all directions, covering hundreds of millions of miles of land. At the same time, Qin Feiyang, Fire Phoenix First Princess and Green Cauldron, the three sovereign divine weapons, were also looking at the ancient town suspiciously. After a while, the ice phoenix sword retracted the divine sense and said in a deep voice, I am sure that I have never seen this ancient town. This, Qin Feiyang and Princess Huofeng looked at each other. Could it really have appeared out of nowhere? Not only that, when we came back, Li Feng and I had hunted skeletons in this area, but we didn't see them. Look at the mountain over there. The ice phoenix sword pointed to the ground to the left. Qin Feiyang looked up and saw a giant mountain that was tens of thousands of feet high sitting on the ground in front of him. It was like a lifelike giant tiger, which was particularly eye-catching. Because of that mountain, I have a special impression of this place. Furthermore, we encountered over a dozen human-shaped skeletons here. Ice Phoenix Sword said. Could it be an illusion? Princess Huofeng was suspicious. Everyone saw it. How could it be an illusion? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Princess Huofeng said, that's hard to say because some illusions can confuse everyone's eyes. Upon hearing this, Qin Feiyang frowned slightly and immediately activated his Eye of Life and Death. Princess Huofeng, the Green Cauldron, the Ancient Pagoda, and the Pure Gold Bell looked at Qin Feiyang's eyes. What was that? Suddenly, the Green Cauldron, the Ancient Pagoda, and the Pure Gold Bell shook. Could it be the legendary Eye of Life and Death? Princess Fire Phoenix, on the other hand, had a confused look on her face. This pair of eyes gave her a very uncomfortable feeling, as if they could tear apart a person's disguise and see all the secrets in their heart. However, in her memory, she couldn't find any information about this pair of eyes. The power of life and death, Eye of Life and Death. These things were not only unfamiliar to Li Feng, but also to Princess Huofeng. Looking at Qin Feiyang again, after activating his Eye of Life and Death, he looked at the ancient town below again. He didn't know if he didn't look, but he was shocked when he saw it. The original ancient town was in ruins, and there was not a single living creature. But at this moment, in front of his Eye of Life and Death, the ancient town had changed drastically. Now, what he saw was not an ancient town, but a castle that covered an area of dozens of miles. It was completely black and dazzling like gold, and this castle was not damaged at all. The most important thing was that in the castle, he saw at least a few thousand human-shaped skeletons. More than half of them were blood-colored human-shaped skeletons, and the remaining half were actually golden human-shaped skeletons that were even more powerful than blood-colored skeletons. One had to know. The golden human-shaped skeletons had already been seen in the first ancient city that Qin Feiyang and Li Feng had entered. This kind of skeleton had mastered the supreme profound of the strongest law. Human? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang was shocked, and his gaze was locked on the center of the Black Castle. In a room in the center of the castle, he actually saw a human. That's right. That was a living human with flesh and blood. He was about 20 years old, and was over 2 meters tall. He was extremely tall and sturdy, like a small giant. He stood in front of the window of the room with his arms crossed, as if he was also looking at Qin Feiyang. And the strange thing was that between the young man's eyebrows, there was a black flame pattern imprinted on it. It was like a cluster of devil flames, emitting an astonishing aura. He can see this king. The young man was indeed sizing up Qin Feiyang, and there was a trace of doubt between his brows. But suddenly, the young man looked at Qin Feiyang's eyes, and a trace of shock immediately crawled up his face. Could this be the legendary Eye of Life and Death? Let's go. High up in the sky, Qin Feiyang suddenly retracted his gaze, looked at the Ice Phoenix sword, and secretly roared. The Ice Phoenix sword was stunned. Princess Huofeng, the Green Cauldron, the Ancient Pagoda, and the Golden Bell were also shocked. What's going on? Quick! Turn around, Qin Feiyang urged. The Ice Phoenix sword quivered. Perhaps it was Qin Feiyang's eye of life and death that saw something terrifying. It immediately rolled up Qin Feiyang and Princess Huofeng and turned around to flee. The Green Cauldron, the Ancient Pagoda, and the Golden Bell also quickly followed and asked, "What did you see?" "A black castle, and a large number of human-shaped skeletons. And I saw a living person," Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. "A person?" Princess Huofeng said in surprise. "Is it really an illusion?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. Princess Huofeng asked, "Could he be from our Sky Cloud realm?" "No. I have seen all the people who entered the Sky Bell Divine Treasure this time, so I dare to conclude that he is not from our Sky Cloud realm." "And do you think the people of the Sky Cloud realm will stay with thousands of human-shaped skeletons?" Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. "Then isn't he an undead condensed into flesh and blood?" Princess Huofeng was shocked. 100%. Qin Feiyang nodded. "Black Castle." The Green Cauldron pondered for a while and asked, "What does that person look like?" "More than 2 meters tall, young man, very strong. And the most obvious characteristic is that there is a cluster of black flame pattern between his eyebrows," Qin Feiyang said. "Black Castle. Black flame." When the Green Cauldron, the Ancient Pagoda, and the Golden Bell heard this mark, their expressions suddenly changed and they secretly said, "Faster, don't let him catch us." "You know him?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes. If your description is correct, then he is one of the 10 great demon kings under the Divine King of Primal Chaos, Black Flame Demon King. And that Black Castle is his sovereign divine weapon, Black Flame Demon Castle," the Green Cauldron said in a deep voice. "Black Flame Demon King?" Qin Feiyang and Princess Huofeng looked at each other. "This Black Flame Demon King has the ability to create illusions, and it is quite terrifying, making people unknowingly fall into the illusion. If you didn't have the eye of life and death to see through the illusion, I'm afraid we would be finished by now." The Ancient Pagoda and the Red Bell spoke one after another, their words full of fear. Qin Feiyang, the Sword of Death, and Princess Huofeng heard this and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. They didn't expect that they had already walked through the gates of hell without anyone knowing. Then how strong is this Black Flame Demon King? The Sword of Death asked. "I don't know. But this lord has heard a rumor. It is said that once, the Black Flame Demon King suppressed a low-level sovereign divine weapon with a wave of his hand," the Green Cauldron said. "What? Suppressed a low-level sovereign divine weapon with a wave of his hand?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. To suppress a low-level sovereign divine weapon, one must at least master 2 ultimate laws. This was incredible. He didn't expect to meet one of the top 10 demon kings so soon. Wait. Why is he here? Could it be that he knows that we are going to find Li Feng, so he came to intercept us halfway? Qin Feiyang was surprised. "I'm not sure, but no matter what, we can't fight him head-on." The Green Cauldron's tone was extremely solemn. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look behind. Seeing that the Black Flame Demon King didn't chase after them, he couldn't help but let out a long breath. Looking back, he glanced ahead and pointed to a river on the right, saying, "We'll go around the river." River? Princess Huofeng and the 4 sovereign divine weapons were slightly stunned when they heard this. They looked to the right. Where was the river? It was clearly an endless stretch of mountains. Huh. Qin Feiyang looked at the reaction of Princess Huofeng and the 4 sovereign divine weapons. He was slightly stunned and closed the Eye of Life and Death. At that moment, the river disappeared. It was indeed a mountain range. What was going on? He opened the Eye of Life and Death again. The mountains and rivers disappeared, and the river reappeared. Damn it! Qin Feiyang's eyes immediately darkened, and said angrily, "We are still in the illusion." Because this was the only explanation. The Eye of Life and Death was different from what the naked eye could see, so it could only be an illusion. What? Still in the illusion? Princess Huofeng and the 4 sovereign divine weapons were shocked. Could it be that they had already fallen into an illusion from the moment they saw the ancient town? Break for me. Qin Feiyang roared, and the eye of life and death surged out waves of black and white divine light, like angry waves in the ocean, rolling out in all directions. The eye of life and death couldn't see through illusions, but it could break them. Crack. At that moment, under the gaze of Princess Huafeng and the four sovereign divine weapons, the void and the earth were like a broken mirror, crazily shattering. Soon, the illusion disappeared. The real scene also appeared in front of their eyes. At this time, they realized that although they had been running for so long, their bodies had not moved at all. They were still standing in the same place. This undoubtedly confirmed their guesses. From the moment they saw the ancient town, they had already fallen into an illusion. Chapter 37:10. So scary. Unknowingly, we fell into an illusion. It feels like the illusion I experienced when I entered the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. Princess Huafeng's face was full of lingering fear. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang's help to break the illusion, she would have been in deep trouble. Qin Feiyang stared at the black castle below warily and asked, "You also experienced an illusion before entering the Sky Bell Divine Treasure?" "Yes. According to the elders of the clan, that was the first stage." Princess Huafeng nodded. "Then will there be people who can't even pass the first stage?" Qin Feiyang was curious. "It is said that the illusion of the first stage is based on the desires in our hearts. So the more one desires, the stronger the desire, the more terrifying the illusion. On the contrary, a person with a pure heart will almost not be affected. But how can people like us not have desires and desires? But even if we don't pass, it doesn't matter, because everyone left their divine souls outside." Princess Huafeng transmitted. "We don't." Qin Feiyang thought to himself. As expected, Princess Huafeng was not surprised at all. How could these ruthless people leave a way out for themselves? They usually put all their eggs in one basket. If they didn't succeed, they would die trying. This was also the reason why they were stronger and more responsible than others. And the most important point, if their divine souls were split, their divine souls would be incomplete. If their divine souls were incomplete, they would never have the chance to enter the state of epiphany. For example, Qin Feiyang. If he also left his divine soul outside, then when he entered the first ancient city, he wouldn't have been able to comprehend the supreme mystery of war. This was what it meant to give and take. In the blink of an eye, the moment the illusion was broken, the black flame castle below suddenly rose from the ground and floated in the void in front of them, emitting a shocking aura. Whoosh! Following closely, the golden skeleton inside the demon castle brought the blood-colored skeleton and rushed out of the demon castle in a grandiose manner, surrounding Qin Feiyang and the others. It really is the eye of life and death. I never imagined that there would actually be someone in this world who could fuse the laws of life and death. Along with a loud voice, the young man walked out of the demon castle step by step. He stood in the air above the demon castle and looked at Qin Feiyang with interest. "It's him, one of the 10 great demon kings, Black Flame Demon King." Lu Ding thought. His tone was extremely solemn. Qin Feiyang looked at the Black Flame Demon King, and his pupils shrank. He bowed and said, "Junior Qin Feiyang greets Senior Demon King." The Black Flame Devil King had not even released his aura, but he could already feel a great sense of danger from him. This was definitely a terrifying existence that could not be easily provoked. He might even be on the same level as the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Qilin Master. He's quite polite. However, I can't come to drink tea and chat with you. Go. As soon as the burly young man finished speaking, the surrounding golden skeletons and crimson skeletons immediately activated their power of laws. There were ordinary laws, and there were supreme laws. And without exception, all of them had reached the strength of the supreme laws. "Senior, let's talk nicely," Qin Feiyang hurriedly shouted. Princess Huafeng also hurriedly said, "Senior, we don't seem to have offended you. Why are you doing this?" However, the Black Flame Demon King turned a deaf ear, and there was a hint of playfulness on his face. "Don't fight, just break through. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened, and he transmitted his voice to the 3 sovereign divine weapons, Ice Phoenix Sword and Green Cauldron. Clang! The 4 sovereign divine weapons immediately erupted with a monstrous power. The Black Flame Demon King's gaze immediately swept across the 4 sovereign divine weapons, and said with a smile, "I advise you not to make a move." Hearing this sentence, the 3 sovereign divine weapons couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. This was an instinctive fear. Just like in the Sky Cloud realm. No matter who it was, as long as they heard the name of Dragon King, they would instinctively feel fear. Qin Feiyang looked at the Black Flame Demon King and transmitted his voice. Ice Phoenix Sword, it's not good to anger him. Return to my body first and wait for my orders. Because so far he didn't feel any killing intent from the Black Flame Demon King. If there was no killing intent, there might be a turning point. But if the Ice Phoenix Sword were to make a move, this possible turning point would probably never really appear. Okay. The Ice Phoenix Sword responded and disappeared into Qin Feiyang's body. Seeing this, the 3 sovereign divine weapons also retreated to the side. At least you know your place. The Black Flame Demon King's expression eased a lot, and said indifferently, "Do it." Boom. The golden skeletons and human-shaped skeletons that had been ready for a long time immediately activated their supreme laws. And a terrifying destructive wave instantly flooded all directions. The void, the earth, and the mountains suddenly began to collapse and shatter. "Take care of yourself." Qin Feiyang looked at Princess Huafeng and shouted secretly. Without hesitation, he immediately activated his 3,000 clones. One must know. Now he was facing thousands of human-shaped skeletons, and each of them had mastered supreme laws. With such a lineup, if he didn't activate his 3,000 clones, he would only be killed instantly. And the Black Flame Demon King looked at the 3,000 clones, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. This didn't seem to be clones. Boom. As soon as the 3,000 clones appeared, the supreme laws of thunder, destruction, and karma were all activated. Whether it was quantity or quality, they instantly surpassed the surrounding skeletons. What? They can even activate supreme laws? The Black Flame Demon King was shocked. The surrounding human-shaped skeletons were also extremely surprised. Kill. Accompanied by a series of earth-shaking roars, the 9,000 supreme laws evolved by the 3,000 clones immediately flooded the sky and attacked in all directions. Rumble. This was a scene of complete suppression. The supreme laws of the thousands of skeletons were crazily shattered and disintegrated. In just a few breaths, the 9,000 supreme laws crushed through and instantly drowned the thousands of skeletons. Ah! A series of painful screams immediately resounded. In the blink of an eye, the thousands of skeletons were all shattered, and even the souls of the dead were all annihilated. Princess Huafeng stood behind Qin Feiyang and watched this scene, and her heart was in turmoil. One move to kill thousands of human-shaped skeletons. Such terrifying strength was indeed not something that they could compare with. The Black Flame Demon King was also a little dumbfounded. He thought that for Qin Feiyang and Princess Huafeng, this would be a bloody battle with a slim chance of survival. After all, there were thousands of human-shaped skeletons, and each of them had mastered a supreme law. But unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, they were killed by this kid named Qin Feiyang. Whoosh! The Black Flame Demon King took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyang, and said, "You are Qin Feiyang?" "That's right." Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at the Black Flame Demon King, and nodded respectfully. The Black Flame Demon King asked, "What is your relationship with Li Feng?" Li Feng. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Could it be that Li Feng had really fallen into the hands of the Chaos Royal City? The Black Flame Demon King said. This king wants to hear the truth. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. At this time, if he said that he did not know Li Feng, the Black Flame Demon King would definitely not believe it. After all, the Ice Phoenix Sword was with him at this time. However, he did not know the true purpose of the Black Flame Demon King's trip. If he said that he knew Li Feng, would it bring about a fatal disaster? Speak. The Black Flame Demon King's tone became sharper. But Qin Feiyang still did not feel any killing intent from the Black Flame Demon King, which made him very puzzled. If there was killing intent, The Black Flame Demon King's purpose was naturally obvious. He was definitely here to find trouble with them. But there was no killing intent. This made him unable to figure out what the Black Flame Demon King wanted to do. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Very good. No denial. Then this king will ask you again, how is your relationship? The Black Flame Demon King asked. Our relationship is not bad. Qin Feiyang said truthfully. The Black Flame Demon King said, then you should know the Blood Ancestor. Blood Ancestor. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. How was it related to the Blood Ancestor again? Could it be that the reason why the Chaos Royal City targeted Li Feng was actually because of the Blood Ancestor? The Black Flame Demon King smiled and said, actually, you don't have to be nervous. We have some connections with the Blood Ancestor. Inquiring about his whereabouts is also to catch up with him. I just don't know if he has come to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure this time. Connections? Qin Feiyang and Princess Huofeng looked at each other. It seemed that he was not lying, because the Black Flame Demon King's smile was very sincere. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and nodded. This junior does know the Blood Ancestor. How is your relationship? The Black Flame Demon King asked with a smile. Relationship? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, the Blood Ancestor, the Human Emperor, and the Feather Emperor are as close as brothers. This junior is the descendant of the Human Emperor and the Feather Emperor. In terms of relationship, it should be quite good. What? You are the descendant of the Feather Emperor? The Black Flame Demon King was surprised. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. The descendant of the Feather Emperor. The Black Flame Demon King looked at Qin Feiyang, and a light flashed in his eyes. He smiled and said, speaking of which, we have some connections with the Feather Emperor. When they entered the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, we even drank together. It can't be. Qin Feiyang was surprised. If that was the case, then their relationship must be quite deep. Since you are the descendant of the Feather Emperor, you are also our guest. Why don't you follow this king to the Chaos Royal City? This king believes that when the Divine King sees the descendant of the Feather Emperor, he should be very happy. The Black Flame Demon King smiled. Looking at the Black Flame Demon King's attitude, Princess Huofeng said in surprise, after all this time, you are not here to find trouble with us? It is indeed a little unexpected. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then shall we go? Princess Huofeng asked secretly. Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. The Black Flame Demon King did not give Qin Feiyang any extra time to think. He smiled faintly and said, let's go. Maybe the Divine King will be happy and give you some good fortune. If that is the case. Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons, then at Princess Huofeng, and finally at the Black Flame Demon King. He cupped his hands and smiled. Then this junior will respectfully accept. The Black Flame Demon King smiled faintly. With a wave of his hand, the Black Flame Demon Castle disappeared from his body. He then looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons and smiled faintly. The 3 of you can go together. Yes. The 3 sovereign divine weapons responded respectfully. Chapter 37:11. Subsequently, Qin Feiyang, Princess Huofeng, and the 3 sovereign divine weapons followed behind Black Flame Demon King, flying forward like lightning. Black Flame Demon King suddenly asked, how has Feather Emperor been these years? Pretty good. Qin Feiyang nodded. What about Blood Ancestor? Did he enter the Sky Bell Divine Treasure this time? Black Flame Demon King asked again. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. That old guy actually came again? Black Flame Demon King was surprised and frowned. Don't tell me that he hasn't mastered the ultimate meaning of the strongest law yet? After leaving the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, many things happened. Not only Feather Emperor, but even Blood Ancestor was greatly injured. So now this junior is not very clear about Blood Ancestor's strength. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Greatly injured? Black Flame Demon King was surprised and frowned. There shouldn't be many people in the Sky Cloud realm who can hurt them. It's a long story. Qin Feiyang sighed. Black Flame Demon King nodded and smiled. Well, let's wait until we reach the Chaos Royal City. The group disappeared at the end of the world like lightning. Half a month later, a desert entered their sight. In the desert, the wind whistled and yellow sand filled the sky. Boom. Not long after entering the desert, a battle fluctuation suddenly came from the front. Qin Feiyang and Princess Huafeng were surprised. At the same time, Black Flame Demon King, who was walking in front of the two, also had a trace of suspicion on his face. But soon, a glint flashed across his eyes. One of the auras seems to be. After Qin Feiyang carefully identified it, there was a trace of joy in his eyes. Because there was an aura that was exactly the same as Blood Ancestor's. In other words, it was very likely that Blood Ancestor was fighting with someone in front. Senior. Qin Feiyang looked at Black Flame Demon King in front of him. The Black Flame Demon King smiled without turning his head. This king has sensed the aura of the Blood Ancestor. To be able to meet him on the way, this should be the so-called fate. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. Up ahead, an old man in blood-red clothes was being attacked by two middle-aged men. His hair was disheveled and his body was covered in blood. The blood-robed old man was none other than the Blood Ancestor. As for the two middle-aged men, one was wearing a fiery red robe while the other was wearing a black robe. Their auras were no less powerful than the Blood Ancestor's. Blood Ancestor, I didn't expect you to still be alive. But it's a pity that he's about to die in our hands. Now do you feel indignant? The two of them sneered again and again as a terrifying law surrounded them. One was the law of fire, while the other was the law of darkness. The aura emitted by the two laws completely surpassed the supreme profundities. Truly, when a tiger leaves the plains, it will be bullied by dogs. The Blood Ancestor roared. The slaughter nomological laws surged like a tide, and his murderous aura soared into the sky. Humph. Do you think it's still the same as before? Now we don't need Lord Dragon King. We are enough to kill you. The two of them sneered. The darkness nomological laws and the fire nomological laws surged toward the Blood Ancestor like a tide. The Blood Ancestor's slaughter nomological laws immediately collapsed in the face of the two laws. Immediately after, the two laws drowned the Blood Ancestor. You want to kill me? You're not qualified. The Blood Ancestor was covered in wounds. With a roar, the slaughter nomological laws forcibly tore open a hole. Then, the time nomological laws surged out of the Blood Ancestor's body. Swish. The next moment, the Blood Ancestor activated the supreme profundities of the time nomological laws. Instant time rushed out like lightning and fled into the distance. Haha. Thinking back, when facing a demon like you, we could only kneel down and beg for mercy. You didn't even look at us. But now you're being chased by us. Do you feel particularly aggrieved? One of the two middle-aged men also grasped the supreme profundities of the time nomological laws and chased after the Blood Ancestor crazily. The Blood Ancestor clenched his fists. That's right. When he was at his peak, these two middle-aged men were like ants in his eyes. He could crush them with one finger. But at this moment, he was being chased by two people who he had once regarded as ants and had fallen into such a sorry state. How could he not feel aggrieved? He was going crazy with hatred. Stop running. No one can save you now. The two of them sneered. That's not necessarily true. But at this moment, a cold voice sounded in front of them. The Blood Ancestor and the two middle-aged men looked forward almost at the same time. The yellow sand swept across the world with the wind. Clang. The next moment, accompanied by a terrifying sword sound, a young man in white holding the sword of Thanatos rushed out of the yellow sand. Qin Feiyang. The two middle-aged men's expressions changed. The Blood Ancestor was overjoyed. He hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang and shouted, "They are the dragon's antiques. Kill them quickly." The dragon's antiques? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. Then a sneer appeared on his face. He looked past the Blood Ancestor and looked at the two middle-aged men behind him. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Let's go. The middle-aged man in black's expression changed. He immediately looked at the middle-aged man in a fiery robe and shouted, The middle-aged man in a fiery robe waved his hand and rolled up the middle-aged man in black. He activated the moment of time and turned around to escape. The blood ancestor stopped and looked at Qin Feiyang. There is a miniature of the law of slaughter in their interspatial ring. Don't let them escape. A miniature of the law of slaughter? Qin Feiyang stared blankly for a moment. With a clang, the Ice Phoenix sword also appeared. The Ice Phoenix sword? Isn't this the sovereign divine weapon of the foam people? Why is it with Qin Feiyang? Could it be that the Ice Phoenix sword has submitted to Qin Feiyang? The blood ancestor and the two middle-aged men were shocked. Clang. The Ice Phoenix sword was a sovereign divine weapon. Its speed was much faster than the moment of time. In the blink of an eye, it landed above the two of them. Don't, the two of them roared. But it was meaningless. The Ice Phoenix sword emitted a world-destroying sharpness and rushed towards the two of them. Behind, Qin Feiyang also waved the Death God sword. Waves of sword chi flooded the sky, releasing a world-destroying divine power. Qin Feiyang, you little bastard, we curse you to die a horrible death. The two of them roared. Then, under the painful screams, they were drowned by the sword chi. Their bodies were directly shattered in the void, and their souls were also annihilated. Then, the Ice Phoenix sword flew in front of Qin Feiyang with the two interspatial rings. Under the protection of the Ice Phoenix sword, the two interspatial rings were intact and the blood contract in the interspatial rings was erased. Because the two of them also left their souls outside. Even if they were killed, the owners of the interspatial rings would still be them. Qin Feiyang took the two interspatial rings and immediately began to search. Soon, he found a palm-sized iron box. It was shining with divine light and was quite exquisite. When Qin Feiyang opened the iron box, a terrifying murderous intent suddenly rushed out. The world instantly turned into a sea of murderous intent. It really is the epitome of the law of slaughter. Princess Huofeng ran over and stood beside Qin Feiyang. She looked at the blood-colored flame in the iron box with longing in her eyes. Although she did not master the law of slaughter, as long as she had the epitome of the law of slaughter, she could quickly comprehend the law of slaughter, and also comprehend the supreme profound meaning in the shortest amount of time. Phew! The blood ancestor breathed a sigh of relief and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. He glanced at the epitome of the law of slaughter, then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. I didn't expect to meet you here. I didn't expect it either. Qin Feiyang closed the iron box and handed it to the blood ancestor under Princess Huofeng's eager gaze. The blood ancestor looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Why was his attitude different from before? After coming back to his senses, the blood ancestor looked at the iron box and waved his hand. I don't need it. You can keep it. Okay. Qin Feiyang did not stand on ceremony and kept it. It's better to be polite. The blood ancestor was speechless. With you there's no need. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The blood ancestor was stunned. This attitude was really different from before. One had to know. In the past, every time Qin Feiyang saw him in the underworld, he wanted to kill him. Why are you here? The blood ancestor asked suspiciously, then looked at the Ice Phoenix sword and asked in confusion. And why is it with you? The Ice Phoenix sword has already abandoned the dark and joined the light. As for why we are here, Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and turned his head to look behind. His expression was slightly stunned as he looked suspiciously at Princess Huofeng and asked, Where is that senior? Huh? Princess Huofeng looked behind and shook her head. I don't know either. Wasn't he still there just now? Senior? What senior? The blood ancestor was suspicious. This king. Accompanied by a burst of laughter, the Black Flame Demon King had silently appeared above their heads without them noticing. This voice. The blood ancestor's gaze trembled as he slowly raised his head. When he saw the Black Flame Demon King, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately looked at the Ice Phoenix sword and the Death God's sword and shouted, Run! Run! The Ice Phoenix sword and the Death God's sword were stunned. Qin Feiyang and Princess Huofeng were also surprised. Why was this different from what they had expected? When old friends meet, Shouldn't they greet each other cordially? Wait. Where are the green cauldron, the ancient pagoda, and the golden bell? Qin Feiyang glanced around and looked at the black flame demon king, but he didn't see the 3 sovereign divine weapons. Left without saying goodbye? No. They couldn't have left without saying goodbye. Hurry. The blood ancestor urged anxiously. But before his voice fell, a terrifying force of death emerged, and a barrier instantly enveloped Qin Feiyang and the others. The owner of this barrier was the Black Flame Demon King. What a strong force of death. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. This force of death was stronger than the law of death she had seen outside, and it was stronger by more than a little. The moment this barrier appeared, it was as if the world had turned into hell. Senior, what are you doing? Princess Huofeng was surprised. No matter what he said to you before, I can tell you responsibly that he is lying to you. The blood ancestor looked gloomily at the Black Flame Demon King and said in a deep voice. Chapter 37:12. Lie. Princess Huofeng's face turned pale. Qin Feiyang's eyes also sank. Whether it was for public or private reasons, the blood ancestor would not lie. But even now he did not feel the slightest killing intent from the Black Flame Demon King. He believed the Black Flame Demon King's words based on this basis. Because if the Black Flame Demon King really had other intentions, then his heart would definitely be filled with killing intent. However, he never thought that his judgment would be wrong. This also reflected that the Black Flame Demon King was an extremely terrifying and shrewd person. Break out, Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Clang. Not only the sword of Thanatos, but also the Ice Phoenix sword, and the ancient castle also rushed out from Qin Feiyang's body, and jointly bombarded the enchantment formed by the power of death. With a loud bang, the enchantment shattered on the spot. After all, it was 3 sovereign divine weapons. With just one enchantment, it was impossible to stop them. Do you really want to make a move? The Black Flame Demon King waved his hand again, and a destructive force emerged. An enchantment appeared again, trapping Qin Feiyang and others inside. Law of destruction. Qin Feiyang was shocked. Whether it was the law of death or the law of destruction, they were both above the supreme profound meaning. In other words, this person had grasped at least 2 ultimate profundities of supreme laws. Don't fight, we are not his opponent. Because he still has the demon castle. The blood ancestor roared. Hearing the blood ancestor's words, Qin Feiyang and Princess Huofeng's hearts suddenly sank to the bottom. Even the blood ancestor said so. How strong was this person? If you let me make a move, the consequences will be quite serious. The Black Flame Demon King laughed, still without the slightest selfishness. It was as if in his eyes, this was an easy and pleasant game, and Qin Feiyang and others were not even qualified to make him want to kill them. What are you being arrogant for? Eat my sword. But at this time, accompanied by a roar, a black-clothed youth descended from the sky, holding a red sword, and attacked the Black Flame Demon King like lightning. Caught off guard, the Black Flame Demon King's head split open on the spot, and blood gushed out. But at this moment, the demonic castle rushed out and attacked the Crimson Sword. So strong? Madman spat out a mouthful of blood as he and his red sword flew out like a meteor. Senior brother. At the same time, Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. He looked at the 3 sovereigns' divine weapons and shouted, "Take this chance to break out." That was right. The person who came was Madman. The Crimson Longsword was the sovereign divine weapon of the Devil Palace. The 3 sovereign divine weapons attacked and shattered the barrier. Immediately, they took Qin Feiyang and the others away without looking back. After seeing how powerful the demon castle was, the mad scientist and the red sword didn't dare to continue fighting. The red sword stabilized its body and immediately swept up Madman, chasing after Qin Feiyang and the others. You're all courting death. Although the Black Flame Devil King's head had been split open, it didn't seem to have much of an effect on him. It also didn't seem to have damaged his divine soul. Clang. A monstrous demonic aura erupted from the demon castle, as it chased after Qin Feiyang's group with the Black Flame Demon King. Killing intent. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the Black Flame Demon King. At this moment, he felt an unprecedented killing intent from the Black Flame Demon King. Finally no longer hiding? Wait! Suddenly, he looked at the demon castle, and his expression changed. So fast! The speed of the demon castle was far faster than the Sword of Death. After the mad scientist and Qin Feiyang met up, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Old Qin, what's going on? How did you provoke such a terrifying existence?" "It's a long story." Qin Feiyang sighed and asked, "Why are you here?" The mad scientist said, "When I was outside the desert, I heard the battle here, so I came to take a look out of curiosity. I didn't expect to meet you guys." "Then you really came at the right time." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He didn't come earlier, but he came at this time. Although he did help them solve their urgent situation, he also dragged the mad scientist himself into the water. Because in the current situation, they couldn't escape at all. The Blood Ancestor said in a deep voice, "Now is not the time to reminisce. Quickly think of a way to get rid of them. Otherwise they will catch up sooner or later." "Get rid of them?" Qin Feiyang turned to look at the demon castle and the Black Flame Demon King. The distance between them had been shortened by half. He sighed and said, "Do you think it's possible to get rid of them?" "Sigh. I was careless. If I had told you about the grudge between us and the Divine King of Primal Chaos, you wouldn't have been deceived by them." The Blood Ancestor sighed. "Us?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "That's right. The grudge between me and the Feather Emperor and the Divine King of Primal Chaos." The Blood Ancestor nodded. "What grudge?" Qin Feiyang, the mad scientist, and Princess Huofeng were surprised. Even the dragons, the Feng people, and the Kirin clan don't know about these grudges. The Blood Ancestor shook his head and looked at the demon castle and the Black Flame Demon King, who were getting closer and closer. He said in a deep voice, "Let's talk about it after we are out of danger." The mad scientist pondered for a while and looked at Princess Huofeng. He asked, "How many rulers' weapons do you have?" "2. Princess Huofeng said. "You have 2, and we have 4 with the Ice Phoenix sword. A total of 6 rulers' weapons. Maybe we have the strength to fight." The mad scientist looked at Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor with a fierce glint in his eyes. The Blood Ancestor was silent. "If the Green Cauldron, the Golden Bell, and the Ancient Tower were here, we would have a better chance, but where are they now?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "We can't take the risk." The Blood Ancestor shook his head and said in a deep voice, "Back then, the Feather Emperor and I together with 5 rulers' weapons couldn't beat this person. 6 rulers' weapons might not be enough." "What? The 2 of you together with 5 rulers' weapons couldn't win?" The 3 of them looked at each other. How heaven-defying was this person? Although the Feather Emperor and I didn't master the most powerful laws at that time, and it's about the same as it is now, we can't underestimate this person's strength. I don't want to take the risk without full confidence." The Blood Ancestor shook his head. "But now we have no other choice." Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist looked at each other and sighed. The Blood Ancestor frowned. Clang. But suddenly, a series of earth-shattering sounds came from behind them. Qin Feiyang and the others turned around and saw that the speed of the castle had greatly decreased. The loud sounds came from inside the castle. Boom. 3 terrifying auras suddenly rushed out of the castle. "It's the Green Cauldron, the Ancient Tower, and the Golden Bell," Princess Huofeng exclaimed. So they were inside the castle. It seems that the Black Flame Demon King sent them to the castle when they weren't paying attention. At this moment they are resisting. No, to be precise, they are helping us. Because they are resisting, the castle naturally has to suppress them. Qin Feiyang said solemnly. "Then what are we waiting for? Take the opportunity to get rid of them." The Blood Ancestor looked at the Ice Phoenix sword and shouted. The Ice Phoenix sword speed reached the extreme and disappeared from the Black Flame Demon King's sight. Damn it! Watching Qin Feiyang's group slip away right under their noses, the Black Flame Devil King was enraged to the extreme. He looked at the Devil Castle and shouted, "Release them!" Boom! As the power suppressing the 3 sovereign divine weapons loosened, 3 divine lights rushed out of the castle. They were the Ancient Tower, the green cauldron, and the golden bell. As soon as they came out, they immediately fled. You want to leave? Killing intent surged in the black flame demon king's eyes, and the power of death and destruction rolled out. He threw a punch at the ancient pagoda, and with a loud clang, a crack appeared on the ancient pagoda. At the same time, the power of the castle erupted and blasted toward the green cauldron and the golden bell. Clang! The two sovereign divine weapons shattered on the spot. This was the true strength of the Black Flame Demon King and the castle. They could completely suppress the sovereign divine weapons. How dare you offend this king? The Black Flame Demon King stared at the three sovereign divine weapons, his dark eyes flashing with a bone-chilling light. Lord Demon King, we are sorry. But Qin Feiyang saved our lives. We can't just stand by and watch him die. We are willing to accept the punishment. The three sovereign divine weapons floated in the void, trembling. Punishment? The Black Flame Demon King smiled sinisterly as his fist, which seemed to be made of divine iron, smashed towards the ancient pagoda. But suddenly, he withdrew his hand and lowered his head to ponder. What's wrong? The castle was puzzled. I have thought of an even more fun game. The Black Flame Demon King chuckled as the killing intent in his eyes dissipated, and was replaced by a hint of playfulness. He then raised his head and looked in the direction where Qin Feiyang and the others had fled. He said indifferently, Qin Feiyang, if you want to save the three divine weapons of the Green Cauldron, come and find me personally. His voice wasn't very loud, but it could be heard hundreds of millions of miles away. In the distance, in the sky above a mountain. When Qin Feiyang heard the voice of the Black Flame Demon King, he immediately stopped and turned to look in the direction of the Black Flame Demon King. Don't be rash. The Blood Ancestor saw that the situation was not good and hurriedly advised. If you go back now, not only will the Green Cauldron and the others be finished, but you will also be finished. Besides, we don't know if there are other Demon Kings on the way. Most importantly, we don't even know how strong they are. I agree. If other Demon Kings are on the way and their strength is beyond imagination, then we will not be able to escape. As for the Green Cauldron and the others, right now they are the bargaining chips in the hands of the Black Flame Demon King. As long as we don't look for the Black Flame Demon King, he won't really destroy them. When we are fully prepared, we will go and rescue them. The Ice Phoenix Sword and the Death God Sword also spoke one after another. Don't worry, I know where their lair is. As long as I am confident, I will take you there immediately. The Blood Ancestor said again. Madman and Princess Huofeng heard this and nodded in agreement. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked in the direction of the Black Flame Demon King. He roared. Okay, just you wait, I will come to find you sooner or later. Finished. He turned to look at the Ice Phoenix Sword and said in a deep voice, Let's go. Chua. The Ice Phoenix Sword took the four and quickly disappeared. It seems that he is also a person who is afraid of death. The Black Flame Demon King smiled disdainfully and retracted his gaze. He looked at the three sovereign divine weapons and joked. Do you think he will really come to save you? The three sovereign divine weapons were silent. This king is looking forward to it. The Black Flame Demon King smiled and let the demon castle suppress the three sovereign divine weapons. Then he turned around and disappeared without looking back. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.